Let's see. Good evening. Good evening. I hate to interrupt the conversation, but the hour of 6 p.m. having arrived, I call to order this meeting of the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee. Meetings being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. Video is being streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the agenda are available in the wall pockets as you enter the room. The public will be recognized to ask questions, make comments on the agenda item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone else has had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room, identify yourself by name and address prior to speaking. Our minute taker is participating remotely. Committee members, turn on your microphones prior to speaking. And if the minute taker can't hear, he or she will ask to speak louder and remind you to turn the microphone on. I note that we are all here, all five of us, so obviously we have our quorum, and I call the meeting to order. First item on our agenda, this is a presentation from Clough Harbor regarding the Robin Hood Park renovation. So if the staff and representative can enlighten us.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kara Fisk-Hennessy, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here to introduce Mike Moonen, who is our project manager, and he is from the firm CHA, who has been doing a lot of the background engineering services, especially central to Phase 1, which is the pool rehabilitation, and that is the phase that we will be discussing this evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Kara. So yes, I'm, as she mentioned, I'm Mike Moonen. I'm a landscape architect and a project manager for this project. And we're here to present the Robin Hood Park pool facility. And as you know, if you're familiar with the pool, it has the many deficiencies. It has ADA access issues. There is a leak in the pool that causes it to lose 5,000 to 8,000 gallons a day. And there's issues with the gutter seam. The pool deck is cracked throughout most of the deck. And then there are just some minor building access ADA issues. All right, so the pool options, this is the basic improvement pool option. It involves putting in a new pool liner, minor repair of the pool mechanicals, ADA access improvements, which in this option it mainly involves an ADA access stair into the pool, and also relocation of the existing ADA lift. And the pool deck upgrades, right now in the option, we have replacing the entire pool deck, but with some value engineering, we might just surgically remove parts of the deck, but that's still under discussion in this option. So then in the second option, this option adds a zero depth entry into the pool, and that's indicated there by A. So patrons could come into the pool here through the zero entry and down into the pool. It also includes all the other improvements that we listed in option 1. So then the building is actually in pretty good shape. I think there were some recent upgrades. We checked it for code, and it meets all the codes except for one minor ADA access code. The doors into each changing facility don't meet ADA guidelines, so we're proposing to take out those 2 doors and then just put in one overhead door at the main entrance. And then while the pool's open, that door is just open, and you can go in and out to the right, to the left. But then when it's locked up, the sliding door goes down,
And to clarify, that's
closes
the,
it.
that's
Yep.
the doorway access to the pool itself. It's not the
To the
main
pool.
entrance
Yep.
to the pool building.
And so to orient you, okay, yeah, this is the entrance into the pool, and then this is from the building out to the pool on the bottom. The other thing we would do is refinish the floor with an epoxy resin coating. So those are the only improvements now proposed for the building. We did look at modifying some petitions and benches and things like that, but those are all things that could be done later or by city staff. So to keep the budget down, we were just looking at the minor building improvements. So then the costs right now, this is an outline of the kind of big picture costs. The demolition is $65,000. This is the basic improvement. The pool improvements, the infrastructure, that's the liner and gutter repair. That's $381,100. Then the pool mechanicals, it does need some upgrades, but not significant upgrades. I think we're going to replace the sand in the filters, and then there's some other improvements to the mechanicals, and that's $153,100. The pool deck, and this is the cost for replacing the entire pool deck, it's $285,440. And then the bathhouse improvements, just that simple door improvement and the flooring is $10,000. So it gives us a base project budget of $894,640. Then with estimated overhead and profit and a contingency, it's just over $1.1 million as this project stands. So with the introducing the option 2, looking at adding a zero-entry ADA accessibility into the pool, and this is added on to that cost, should it move forward at the same time. It's, the beach entry demos, $12,000, beach entry ramp addition, that's that L that comes out of the pool, is $368,825. And then with that, we do need to upgrade additional pool mechanicals because we need to improve the turnover rate on the pool because we'd be increasing the volume of the pool. So that addition with overhead and profit and contingency is $686,480. So then other things that have been requested and were in the master plan was just some splash features by the beach entry. That'd be another additional $100,000 to $180,000, depending on the features. And that would include adding those features would require adding another pump system. And we were looking at putting that in the storage system on that storage area on that end of the building, should that be able to move forward. And then a separate splash pad. This would be a splash pad just to the north of the pool in that open grass area. That could range from $450,000 and up, depending on what level of splash pads put in. And we are actually looking at adding that or to the master plan part of the project to make it one of the improvements outlined in the revised master plan. We did also look at, this is something we kind of currently were looking at, was raising the floor of the deep end of the pool and decreasing the depth. And this was an effort to try to make the water volume the same so we wouldn't have to do the pool mechanical upgrades. But just batting this around kind of late in the project, we were determining that the amount of work involved in doing that would add costs to the project also. So it's almost close to the amount as adding, revising the mechanicals, because that would be a new pool deck in that area, which is a good amount of concrete and so forth. And that ends the pool presentation. As far as the master plan goes, we are working with the committee and the steering committee on some concepts. We're actually probably working on the concepts as we speak. And over the next couple months, we're going to be discussing those concepts and then have some plans to present on that. Did you want to add anything?
For the public engagement feature.
Yeah.
So we're
Yep.
looking forward to designing concepts for the park side of the Robin Hood Park renovation. That will include everything separate from the pool. And we're looking forward to having the steering committee come together at the beginning of August and then identifying a date in September to gather some public feedback.
Thank you. Quick question. Back in your very first slide, the bathhouse, bathroom, whatnot, by eliminating that door, is that eliminating a second egress?
No.
No.
No. No, the building would still have two means of egress.
Okay, now, I'm just not understanding why to remove the door.
So
If there's any benefit.
The existing doors, ADA requires 1 foot to 1 foot 6 inches at the door opening, and those doors don't have that. And the width of those corridors don't allow us to add that in width and the required door width for ADA access.
So what would be
That's
happening?
That's like the only deficiency in the building
In the-
for
Okay,
ADA.
well, again, I don't get the logic of this.
Uh-huh.
Sealing up the wall surely is
We're not
Oh,
sealing
it's
up the
not
wall.
sealing up the wall, it's an
So-
overhead door.
It's an overhead door. It's like a coiling door that would come down.
Oh, and
to
that
lock
would
up,
be in
and
the
then it would
same
be up.
location?
Yes,
Yeah.
in the same location. So it's
Okay.
taking the doorways that go to the men's changing facility and the women's changing facility, removing the doorways and removing the door frames.
Okay.
And then putting in a door that's lockable. That's
Makes a
just
lot more
Yeah.
sense than
one more sliding door.
closing up the hole.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, exactly,
but-
exactly. It's not, yeah, it's not
Looking, there's a
closing up
big
the hole.
Entry on the right. Anyway, never mind. Okay, committee, any more reasonable questions than that? Okay. Yeah, where, Laura, yeah.
Thank you. I was just hoping that you could explain the zero entry, and I guess it wasn't what I was picturing in terms of having sort of a separate path. So I'm curious if you could kind of give an overview of that. And then also, along with that, I'm kind of wondering if adding that extension service area would also add to the need for additional lifeguards.
Okay, yes. So we did look at, one of our first attempts was to look at doing a zero entry, like down the whole end of the pool. But the length that's required in the landings would push it very far out. And it would be very costly, because this end of the pool is about 3 feet deep. So we need to get down from here, we need to get down 3 feet. So that's why we need the extra length of this L on the zero entry.
It's because of the slope and grade requirements.
Yeah,
So we were not able to effectively bring that whole shallow end out further to create that zero entry access point.
Good.
And yes, it would require additional guards.
One more.
One concern that I have just about that is, I guess if it's sort of shallow, are kids going to end up playing in that space? And what, it doesn't sound like that's the intent of it, and that's just kind of a concern for me.
yeah, they do end up playing in that space, and then people have to go around them.
Other committee questions? Okay, this is a public conversation. No decisions are going to be made this evening, but the designers and the staff want input from the public. I would just also suggest to you, we're all taxpayers here. It would be wonderful to have a water slide and God knows what else, but we need to keep this reasonable, functional, but it is our one shot to improve this pool probably in our time, put it that way. So anyone from the public want to offer any thoughts or suggestions? No? Oh, there is a hand. Forward, please. No, no, up here, microphone.
To the microphone.
I have a question about
Name and
the-
address, please.
My name is Nell Weiner, and I live at 352 Roxbury Street, just down the slope from the pool. I can walk up in 45 seconds. I'm wondering about the pool house and the locker rooms, bathhouse. Can you bring that image up again? Yes, the plan. Right now, from what I can tell, it looks, I'm confused because it sounded like from the 10,000 estimate, all that was getting changed was it just looks very different in here how it is currently, like with the concession area and with the men's and the women's, if I'm reading this correctly, swapped. And I'm wondering if I'm reading it backwards.
Oh, yep, this is Reservoir Street up here.
That's Reservoir Street.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then my
this is-
second
This is where
question.
you'd enter
Yeah.
into the pool.
My
And
second
so they're not-
question.
We're not swapping the men's and women's room.
Okay. So then, is there a reason why the men's side does not have the same partitions for the shower area that the women's side has?
We had talked about that as a city committee and also as a steering committee and determined that that is some really high-quality winter work that our staff would be able to do instead of having it be part of this project.
Thank you.
You're
Very
welcome.
good. Other public questions, comments? Director, I mean, city manager, whatever you are.
Once direct. Just note, your recommendation tonight, I believe, our director is looking for final design and approval to move forward, because this relates to the timing of construction. So in order for us to move forward, we would need to make sure that we are constructing to have an open pool for next season. So that's kind of the timing. Is that not correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a public question coming forth. Name and address again, please.
Hi, my name's Pat Giorgio. I live at 97 Wilbur Street. I'm sorry, I was a little late to the meeting. We had to park up the street, but, so is the pool for sure, the changes are going to be made for sure? Because when this was discussed 5 or so years ago, there was a question that maybe Robin Hood Park would never have a pool because the major construction needed. So is that still question mark, or is this like a done deal that's going forward?
I think this is an exclamation point. This is a done deal that is going forward.
Oh, great, great. 'cause-
Robin Hood Park will have the pool.
Because we who use the pool just didn't know.
Yes,
And, okay, thank you.
you're
Great.
welcome.
There was a period of time where that was a very good question, but I think that it is now a commitment. There will be a pool. We're talking about modifications to the pool. So what I'm hearing is we need a final design, which our choices, can you run down options that we might have so we can,
Oh, should I go to the budget? And so, okay. So this is the base renovation option. And this is the one that that could fit within the current budget that we have. And this one does not have the zero entry. However, I could add that we have been discussing the feasibility of adding the zero entry later. You know, should these improvements occur now? We're looking at the possibility of adding the zero entry in the future should additional funding come available.
One of the best benefits of these exercises and running through all of the different design options is having all of the plans so that we do know what it would take in order to add on at a later date if we had the funding available.
so
But-
one option is to add the zero entry.
Correct. That would be the base $1.1 million plus the $689,000.
So that's this one.
Then the next question is regarding the splash pad,
Yep.
beach entry spray feature.
That would be a spray feature, so in this image here, that's the zero entry. We would probably make the zero entry a little bit wider, and then a spray feature would go to the side of the zero entry. Like a splashing mushroom or a tree or buckets or.
Splash pad
or
is
something like that.
450,000.
And then the splash pad would be a standalone splash pad in this, I could go back, in this, this area north of the pool. Still within the pool footprint, but just north of the pool.
Okay.
And that
Wheel-
easily could be added later as
Wheelock
as a
Park?
standalone project almost.
Wheelock Park is getting a splash pad?
Wheelock Park had a splash pad, and the splash pad has been defunct for
It's in there? I
6
haven't
years.
been there, I don't know.
It is not in there.
Again,
It was installed,
it's done.
and it does not exist anymore.
Now, you got me confused again.
I think the deputy city manager could add a little more detail.
The splash pad was added in 2011, and we had it operating and functioning for about 2-3 years, and what they call the brain of the operation that was sold to us was actually like the last of its kind, and we could not replace it, and then multiple pieces within the infrastructure below collapsed. So unfortunately, the pad has not been usable for probably at least 6 years.
Okay. Just want to keep it quality, yeah, but, okay. Committee comments, questions? Yeah, Molly, Counselor.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up about what Councilor Tobin was asking about the lifeguards. So would additional lifeguards, excuse me, be necessary just to have the zero entry, or would it be necessary if we did the zero entry with the additional splash features, or both?
Both.
Okay.
Yep.
And is that potentially, I'm sorry if I can follow
No,
up. Is that potentially a problem in the future with staffing?
Yes.
Okay. And if I may ask one more. So how possible is it to not do the zero entry now, but to, look at that for like 5 years down the road? Is that gonna be a gigantic undertaking if we're not tacking it onto this project?
I think that what we are looking for today is to be able to do the baseline renovation so that we can make sure that we seal up the leaks, so that we can have an efficient pool system and we can have a safe pool liner. And then the feasibility of adding a zero entry later on is a little bit more difficult than the feasibility of adding a splash pad or splash features later on.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. You want?
Vicki Morton, Water Street, Keene. The zero entry, was that initially designed for handicapped access?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Then
It's-
why would you put a splash aspect on a handicapped access to a pool?
Oh, yeah, it's done quite often. You just put it off to the side, and you still have handicap access on the other side of the zero entry ramp.
Do you have?
So the zero entry
so-
ramp would be a little bit wider.
So do you turn
I
off
don't-
the splash aspect if someone
No.
is mobily challenged, wants to get into the pool?
So here's an example of a wider zero entry. So if you put a splash feature over here on the side,
Okay.
patrons could still come in on this side and not get
Initially, it
interfered
sounds
by the.
contradictory.
Yeah, but it's done all the time. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Good evening, Kelly McKenney on Peg Shop Road in Keene. Just a couple questions. Have there been like feasibility studies of the chair hoist use versus, and I apologize, I haven't been to the previous meetings if this was covered, but, so a chair access hoist to get someone with a disability in the pool versus the zero entry, the two different levels of,
So yes, the pool already has a chair lift. There's an image right here, and we would just be relocating that as part of the project. So the other aspect is that to keep in with code, we have to have 2 means of ADA
Okay.
access to the pool. So we're adding an ADA access stairway here. So it just has more rails.
And that, one,
For-
what
in
year
this
was,
corner.
is that code
Yes.
a new thing in the last couple of years?
It's current. It would be current
Yeah,
code.
it's the
The
current code.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're not in breach right now?
No.
Yeah, it's not in compliance now.
Not
but
in
This would
compliance
bring it
now.
up to compliance.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, you,
Thank you.
Counselor.
You can ask the public if they have any questions first.
Go.
All right. Can you just further explain the renovated leisure pool aspect of the project? Like as far as what the depth of that would be? And I'm curious just, yeah, I guess if you answer that,
Oh.
it'll answer my other question.
Okay, I can answer. So the pool depth would be the same as it is now. We wouldn't modify the depth under this option. So it's about 3 feet at the edge, 3 feet 6 inches, and then it goes down to 4 feet 6 inches. And then it, coming around the corner, it goes down to 5 feet, and then 10 feet at the deep end.
And right now, we currently have buoy lines at the 4'6" that separate the shallow end from the mid section, and then we also have a line of buoys at the 4'6" that separate the mid section from the deep end.
More?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Counselor.
Thank you. This is a question, in terms of temperature of the pool, I know that like water chillers are becoming more important in different places. And just think, with rising temperatures, and I would imagine sort of shallower areas, that could heat up more quickly. And I guess I'm just wondering if that's something to be concerned about or not.
I don't think that's
Okay.
something to be concerned about because we have the mandatory turnover with the pool mechanicals right now, so the water is filtered regularly.
I thought you were going to ask about water heaters, not chillers. Never mind.
yeah, okay, well.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Forward.
Pete Renaz, 261
Wait,
Chapman
wait,
Road.
say it again.
Pete Renaz, 261 Chapman Road. I was just wondering, I want this to be, especially maybe a little older kids, for them to use and be excited about. So do we have diving boards? Do we have any water slides? I mean, what's the incentive for the local junior high and high school kids to come here? Do you know what I mean? If we're spending all this money on this, we want to make it so people are going to use it. And I think I think everyone wants to pay for it, but if it's not being used,
Well, I will ask the director to answer that. I'm pretty sure I know the
Sure,
answer.
so I'm not sure exactly how many years ago that the diving boards came out. There used to be diving boards, and there was also a water slide at this pool way back. But it comes down to insurance and liability, which is the reason that we do not have the diving boards and we do not have the water slide right now. So hopefully, kids that are preteen, young adult, they'll just come and swim and have a really good time. We do have pool party events that we host that add in some competitions and add in some different kinds of fun, but we would not be able to add any amenities like a diving board or a water slide.
I've been there, my kids grew up there.
Mm-hmm.
It works, they come. But I could understand water slide and more amenities, but it's a matter of insurance and liability.
Correct.
Mr. Bohannon, anything? No, done. Anyone else? How about a motion? Yep,
Sorry.
what,
I do have a question.
you do?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in advance of the motion, I want to be clear about what the staff, if there's a staff recommendation here, we have alternatives in front of us.
The staff recommendation is that we do this option A, which does not include the beach entry at the current time, but does give us the plans so that if more funding does become available down the line, we have different options that have already been fully investigated.
Good.
Sounds
Go.
good to me.
Yeah.
Move to recommend that City Council approve the final design of the project and authorize the city manager to do all things necessary to bid and construct that design as recommended by city staff and the city's consultant engineer, CHA.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Anything further from the public? Committee? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I
Thank
was
you very
hoping for
much.
the splash pad, but not at that price. Yeah. Okay, next item on the agenda, item 2, petition presented by Eric Murphy. Regarding safety improvements at South Lincoln Street and Roxbury Street. Good evening, sir. Hi. What?
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
You got it.
Good
Thank you.
evening, Chairman and members of the MSFI committee. I'm not making a presentation this evening, but I will be talking you through the simple parts of the overview. I'm a resident at the corner of Roxbury Street and South Lincoln, North Lincoln intersection. Earlier in June, I was presented with a pickup truck that survived a crash in the middle of the intersection and ran through my hedge. I've seen this twice, and I've lived in Keene a long time. To bring you up to date with some other more current news, there have been 2 more accidents at the same location since my original petition was signed by my neighbors and other concerned community members. So the petition, as was prepared, offers you many opportunities to think differently about how to approach a dangerous intersection where there are speeding cars that are not complying with miles per hour that is listed in that neighborhood. And what really seems to just fit the bill and is the basis for my cover letter is the creation of a 4-way stop, which would ensure that traffic slows to a complete stop, provided they read the sign. Having seen other stop signs in other towns, those can be fitted with LEDs that just blink on the perimeter of the sign. I gave photographic illustrations in my cover letter. Gives you a clear indication that each sign would be illuminated. It would say it's a 4-way stop, and this would be the first step, very similar to the case of intersection of Water and Grove next to the 100 Nights shelter. So I believe this is well within, the reasonableness test. It spares everybody having to do extensive traffic studies and come back with 3 specialists coming to a conclusion that this intersection is too dangerous to leave as it is. And with recurring accidents, it's been 6 weeks since we submitted the petition, and 2 more accidents. It seems like this is not going away. I know there may be reluctance on the part of various departments within the city to say that any change is needed. I would like to prepare for that and say, I don't wish to come back to the committee with a fatality as the reason for presenting the same solution. So, to give you back most of your time this evening, I'm going to end my commentary here. We can go to questions, and I do know that there are a number of folks who are joining me tonight who will want to give their own testimony. So, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to deal with the petition and bring it to us. Public Works Director, can you enlighten us as to what and why?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Luce here, representing various departments within the city, apparently, tonight. So the committee probably knows that we've looked at this intersection a couple of times over the last few years. We looked at it again. I understand the petitioner's point, and I certainly don't want to see an injury or fatality at this intersection. I continue to have significant reservations about a all-way stop. Specifically, I'm not convinced, and I admire your faith in drivers' behavior, but I'm not convinced that putting up a four-way stop sign is going to actually get folks on Roxbury Street to stop. I think the primary concern at that intersection is sight distances. Sight distances for northbound traffic on South Lincoln and southbound traffic on North Lincoln. But also for westbound traffic, folks coming down the hill on Roxbury as they're coming around the corner. Stopping sight distance is limited by the geometry, the vertical curve, or excuse me, the horizontal curve of the roadway. Especially for folks that are out of town and aren't expecting it, a stop sign there is going to be challenging for them to stop in time. I have significant concerns that a four-way stop at that location is going to end up leading to more accidents in the form of rear-end collisions and that sort of thing. That said, the petitioner is absolutely right that the traffic collision history at this intersection, clearly something needs to be done. Luckily for him, the city engineer tonight had a excused absence and isn't enjoying the hot seat with me. But we have spent the last couple of weeks trying to come up with some alternatives, and we've looked at a number of different options. We talked about additional signage. So last time this was actually in front of the committee, we did put up and we recommended advanced warning signs on the curve to allow folks to know the curve is coming and whatnot and slow down. We talked about what are called transverse rumble strips. So in a little while, we're going to hear a presentation on longitudinal rumble strips along the edges of the highway. There's also a thing called a transverse rumble strip. The example that everybody around here knows is next to CVS in Peterborough. As you're coming down 101, as you get closer to that roundabout, there's a series of sequential rumble strips. Each one is a little bit closer together, so they make you they sort of raise your heartbeat a little bit as you speed along. Those can be really effective at warning folks of unexpected hazards in the roadway and getting people to pay a little closer attention. I'm concerned that they are also very, very noisy. And that is a residential neighborhood. The statistics I found were they can raise traffic noise depending on the speed and the volume of the traffic. They can raise traffic noise by approximately 10 decibels, which in a decibel scale, 10 decibels means that you're doubling the traffic noise. So I think that would prove to be quite unpopular with the residents in that neighborhood. We did look at and talked about speed feedback signs. Similar to the radar panels that the city uses, to collect data throughout the city, we could do something more permanent at that location. I think that's still a viable option to consider. I'd also like to explore acquiring, I guess for lack of a better legal term, we'll call it a view easement. Because like I said, I think that the primary issue at this intersection is the sight distance for traffic that's entering Roxbury from North and South Lincoln. On the northwest corner and the southwest corner of that intersection, on the one corner there's a hedge that's right up against the right-of-way, and on the north side there's a fence that's right up against the right-of-way. Especially on the north side, for somebody in a low vehicle, that really obstructs their ability to see traffic coming from the eastern direction. So I'd like to explore with those property owners if they would be willing to voluntarily either donate or sell the city the right to move those obstructions back, move the hedge, move the fence, that sort of thing. Obviously, that's not a conversation we've had with the property owners, but I think it's something that's worth exploring as a solution to the underlying problem. So all that said, in summary, I guess I continue to have reservations about an always stop. I can't recommend that as the next step. Instead, I'm going to recommend, and I know that the chair hates putting things on more time, but I would recommend this one get put on more time, and allow us to come back in September with some more information. And if you prefer not to do that, the other option would be to refer it to the city manager and allow staff to work on it over the next couple of weeks or couple months, excuse me, and come back with some more concrete solutions.
Thank you.
May I
Yes.
return to the conversation? So thank you for sharing those perspectives. One thing that anticipating, an upcoming intersection, it's never been labeled a dangerous intersection. And there are signs that say dangerous intersection ahead. And
She doesn't know I'm at a meeting.
in order to continue to preview the upcoming risk factor, I'd offer that as a thought towards changing signage coming down Roxbury Street. The actual space between the corners there has never seen a speed table. And if we're looking at options that no longer require a four-way stop, a speed table is silent, and generally it's effective, because wherever I've seen them here in Keene, I know people are taking their time. North Lincoln happens to have two of them that lead out past the cemetery. So markings on the pavement, a dangerous intersection notice of some kind, and I would bring those two thoughts back to your commentary. All right?
Yeah, and those are all valid suggestions that I think we can look at. I don't know
Yeah.
whether, we're going to recommend all of them, but yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Okay,
I'll
thank-
continue
thank you.
to participate in all conversations at any time.
Great,
Yeah.
good. Thank you. One second. Being that this is my regular commute, I would call myself some degree of a, I don't know, participant, I won't say expert. From my perspective, I'm the guy who's coming down the hill. It's the people on Lincoln Street stopping or not stopping, and that, I think, is causing the issue. Public Works Director is very good about improving the site information. I think that's important. I think more signage would be great. I think that's a good point. And I like the little signs that somebody put out there saying dangerous intersection ahead. But still, the public's just got to participate in these things too. So it's a little troublesome. And I also personally like the idea of this speed humps or speed tables. I don't know whether I would be more favorable on Roxbury Street or Lincoln Street. Actually, maybe both, because that would slow them down on Roxbury Street too, because I think that's an issue. Anyway, and I'll get to the public in a section. You, Councilor Tobin.
Thank you. A couple of thoughts I have. So first of all, I know that at one point I had mentioned, I do think it would be nice to have an ordinance that focused specifically on sightline, because a lot of the guidelines that we have about how far a vehicle can be parked from an intersection, all of that is sort of, it's related to sightline and it's about sightline, but it's sort of considered separately, and it's not taking into account how all of those things fit together. And so I do think that would be important to explore. In terms of an all-way stop, in thinking about it, and I understand the perspective of this being it being difficult for people coming down to stop and to know that they need to stop. However, I also think that this particular intersection, a lot of most of the people driving it are driving it regularly. And so I honestly don't know that putting up a sign, you know, I think people would get used to it when they would know, like, so, and I think knowing that you need to stop at the upcoming intersection, I think people coming down that hill would anticipate that, and they would be slowing down. So even if someone wasn't able to see coming off of Lincoln, then they would have enough time to stop. So I actually do think that's worth considering.
A lot of good ideas are coming forth, and I'm sure the director is taking them all down. Yeah. Counselor?
Yeah, I think,
Oh, you?
No, I was thinking Molly.
Okay.
I saw Molly.
well, I'm gonna go. But thank you, Mr. Chair. So this intersection is not part of my regular commute. I'm not very familiar with it at all. I am familiar with kind of speed tables and speed humps in my part of town, and I think it's, you know, it slows people down, and if it doesn't, then they only make that mistake once, right? Like, then you know exactly where the speed bump and the speed hump is. So I do think that's something potentially consider exploring. I will say that we had, and it was mentioned in this petition, we had a similar discussion a couple years ago when I first got on council and on this committee about the four-way stop at Water Street and Grove Street. And I was a skeptic at that time for some of the same reasons that the Public Works Director listed. And I understand the sight lines and the geometry is a little bit different. You know, it's not exactly the same situation. I'm not going to say that I was wrong about that intersection. I will say that it is, I've been pleasantly surprised at how well I think it's been working, a four-way stop there. So I hear the Public Works Director's concerns. I think some other alternatives have come out that sound positive, and it sounds like at least the lead petitioner might be open to discussing further. But I concur with Councilor Tobin that a four-way stop has surprised me positively before. I'm not sure that it couldn't do so again here.
Councilor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually wanted to ask the Public Works Director. I know we had a roadway safety assessment or study a few years ago, and I believe it did recommend a stop sign, or maybe it was a four-way stop, I forget, at that location, and it didn't rise to the level. I remember Public Works decided that it didn't meet the standards. I think that MUTC something.
D.
Thank
D.
you. It didn't meet the standards that Public Works felt it deserved a stop sign, and I'm wondering what the disparity is between those recommendations.
So the MUTCD, federal guidelines, Federal Department of Transportation guidelines, that's the manual and uniform traffic control devices. The city council has adopted that. Well, the city council has adopted the state standards as our traffic control standard, and the state has adopted the MUTCD as its traffic control standard. So by proxy, we've adopted it. In the MUTCD, there's a number of criteria that are supposed to be evaluated as part of an engineering study to determine if an always stop is warranted. The issue is that, you know, the research has shown if we put up a stop sign at every intersection, basically people stop obeying them. So they're effective when they're used judiciously, where they make sense and where they're needed. But if they're overused, they tend to have the opposite effect. And in this location, the concern is so that there are different criteria. Crash history is one of them that we do need to look at, and that one is really the most compelling reason to consider it. The other criteria, like traffic volumes on the minor and major approaches, there's a number of different things, relative speeds. It did not meet those criteria, and we don't recommend it for that reason. But also, as I mentioned, I think that it would create a false sense of security for the minor approaches, the South and North Lincoln Street approaches, to think, well, the guy on Roxbury Street's got to stop when maybe the Roxbury Street isn't going to stop. So,
Let me ask a follow-up. I also wondered about what you were saying about you thought collisions may increase, but like rear end collisions.
Yes,
And I
so-
wondered if that is so, wouldn't those be less dangerous collisions than, like, than people speeding through?
Yeah,
the intersection?
the collision's consequence, the seriousness of the collision really is a function of relative speed. So, yeah, a T-bone intersection at, full speed is probably the most problematic. But rear-end collisions are also very, very dangerous, especially if the second car is, driving too fast, frankly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think one of the biggest issues for North and South Lincoln Street is the sight distance. So I love the idea of the city working with the property owners at those corners to trim back some of the landscaping there. My other concern, I agree, something needs to be done right away. I have a question for Public Works, and then at the end of the day, what this really comes down to is traffic enforcement. I've had private meetings with the city manager, and have been reassured there would be some additional traffic enforcement throughout the city throughout this summer. I haven't really seen that in effect and implementation, and I'm a strong believer that if the visible presence of police officers is more frequent, and we're issuing tickets, that word will spread like wildfire. It'll be all over the place. Keene's out there. We're enforcing speed limits. I just think that that's important to do at this time. My question for Public Works is, do we have temporary rumble strips or speed bumps that we could use and put up to test out in theory?
So last year, we actually purchased a temporary speed hump system. It's not a full-size table like we see out on
North Lincoln.
North Lincoln, thank you. It's just a smaller hump. It's about 6 feet long as you're driving across it. And we used that in response to a concern on Pearl Street. We set it out there. Those systems are like bolted to the asphalt, so we have to remove them before winter. So we had it out there for about 2 or 3 months. The results of that, frankly, were mixed. The people slowed down, for sure, 100%. We also got a number of Ring doorbell videos that showed the downside of those systems. So a car leaving the ground because it hit the speed hump at probably about 45, 50 miles an hour. Obviously dangerous. Vehicles getting rear-ended because the car in the front saw it and jammed on the brakes at the last second, and the car behind it, slammed into them. So there are downsides. Another video, we saw a vehicle just drove across somebody's lawn to get around the speed hump. So, there is no engineering solution for human behavior. So,
Well, a question to both of you. Are you thinking to put this on Lincoln Street or Roxbury Street?
My thought would be to put it either before the turn, the bend on Roxbury, or, right before, so it slows traffic down as they're coming into that intersection, because I think that's probably, the issue with most of the accidents is people coming around that bend. It's downhill, so they're picking up speed, they can't see. So I think somewhere along those lines would be good. It would slow them as they approach that four-way intersection.
Okay, well, acknowledging that this is going to be studied more, again, I say it's people that aren't stopping. It's not the cars that are going, but it's conversation. No? Okay, you know more? Okay, fine. Vicki, please.
Vicki Morton, 275 Water Street. it wasn't just Mr. Murphy that submitted this petition. There was a whole bunch of us that joined his request to have something done with this intersection. And there's a part of me that says that, you know, as a taxpayer, if we're not violating state and federal law, not guidelines, but law, and if the city of Keene is not having a financial penalty for doing this, and the neighborhood is asking for safety, I don't understand why the four-way stop sign becomes such a hindrance. And if Mr. Murphy were to give up his hedge, that's his protection right now. That's his protection from having a pickup truck on his doorstep, as opposed to keeping it at least outside the boundaries. And I'm sorry that the city manager's not here this evening, because she was at our East Side neighborhood meeting a couple of months ago, and she said clearly that with the police force continued understaffed, that the priority is not traffic stop signs or red lights. That the priority is assaults, robberies, investigations, and Jacob is shaking his head. He heard it as well. The other issue that we're not talking about yet is that when this is all dug up and it becomes whatever it's going to become, that traffic is all going to go someplace to get around downtown. And right now, it already goes Beaver, North Lincoln, South Lincoln, Eastern Ave, and it's a raceway as it is. So we have asked in the past that during this construction, what is the traffic patterns? How are they going to change, and how are they going to be monitored? And then on the other side of it, we hear that traffic, stop signs, and red lights are not the priority. So we have a larger piece. So if we're not going to get the support from the police department, then I think it's really important that we have the four-way. I think the blinking lights on a four-way brings more attention to the fact that it's a stop sign, and I'd like to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. And then back there.
Hi, Jennifer Sizo, 10 Fairfield Court. I am in total favor of having the four-way stop. I live off of Water Street, and to get downtown, I take Lincoln and want to make a left turn on Roxbury to go downtown. Coming tonight, that's how I drove here tonight. I drove. It's very scary when you want to make that left turn. You cannot see far enough up the hill, okay? It's not, to me, it's the people coming down the hill that are the problem. You can't see them in time. You know, look left, right, left again. Well, you got to look right again and just go. And just go. I mean, really, you just go. You just hope that nobody's speeding down there. I think that a four-way stop with those lights, signage up the hill explaining this is coming up. Have a flashing sign there too. It's going to stop. I also think that you can put out signs ahead of time, those electronic signs. This is going to be happening. That's what happened at the four-way on Water Street. It was warning people, we're going to be doing this. And by and large, people do that. You know, I mean, have there been many accidents? It's very, very difficult to make that left turn. You might try not coming down the hill when you come into town and come down Lincoln and trying to make that left for quite a while, you know, every time you come in now. It's hard, especially during the school season. The bus comes down that hill. So I'm appreciate the other efforts, but I think that a stop sign is really necessary.
I thank you for your perspective, and tomorrow I'm going to go down Water Street and make the left, because I was not looking at it from that perspective. Get to you next, back there, please. Yeah, somebody.
Again, Nell Weiner, 352 Roxbury Street. The one thing that I remember from physics in high school is that my teacher drilled into us that you should not be braking while you're curving. If you're trying to stop your velocity going forward while you're also changing your velocity from side to side, that's when cars go out of. So my concern, the slowing down needs to happen before the curve. And, or else my suggestion would actually be a stop sign at Reservoir Street. That is also a park. That is where children are crossing by all the time. My suggestion is actually a stop sign at Roxbury and Reservoir Street with and then right next to the sign like a dangerous curve ahead, so that then people are already slowed down by the time that they hit that steeper hill and then the curve. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. Question for the, come forward, but a question from me to the Public Works Director. If the committee and council wants to do this four-way stop, can we do it in spite of whatever the says?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It is completely up to this council's discretion. The city code requires the stop signs be listed in city code to be enforceable. So it would take an ordinance to enact that. But yeah, you are not required to follow my recommendation. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll remind you of that.
I don't know if I don't know if the city attorney wants to add anything to that.
No, they tell me the same thing to me, so.
Okay, yes, please. Let's see where this is going.
I'm Julie Runez, 261 Chapman Road. That intersection is part of my daily commute, and it's also where my husband was in a very serious accident about a year ago. He was T-boned at that accident heading up Roxbury from a car who was heading north on Lincoln. And his SUV flipped over completely and landed back on its tires. So it's an extremely dangerous intersection, and I understand the compulsion to say, well, a four-way stop will fix the problem. I don't think that it will. In my view, going through there every single day, there are two major issues with that intersection. One is that when you're heading north on Lincoln, the stop sign is almost completely obscured by the trunk of a tree, not a tree branch. There is a tree directly in front of that stop sign. The person who hit my husband did not see it and did not even touch her brakes. They did not see each other until the moment of impact because of the hedge on the southwest corner. Those are the two major issues at that intersection. And if those two things are not addressed, no amount of stop signs and no amount of speed bumps or any kind of speed reduction is going to stop the accidents. And somebody is going to die. It's going to happen if we don't fix it.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Razia Aliham, 51 Beach Street. So I do this intersection multiple times a day going between two school campuses, and it is the most dangerous intersection I've encountered living in many places. And I see the danger exactly as the former speaker said, and also folks coming down the hill. And I came from a very flat place before, and being in New Hampshire, we've been exploring, and there are so many other places where there are similar intersections, and they have stop signs, and people are able to stop coming down the hill. And there are signs that prepare you for that ahead. And it's absolutely true that I know the stop sign is there, and so I stop, but I don't often see it, especially coming down Lincoln. And I come from all of those directions. And we're always saying, should we go a different way so we don't have to encounter this intersection?
Thank you. I have a lot of good suggestions going on. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Joe can tilt this. There we go. There we go. Joan Murphy, spouse of Eric Murphy, 287 Roxbury Street. I do want to remind council that that corner, Roxbury and South Lincoln, is also a bus stop. And thank you, Jen, for just kind of gave me the little nudge to say, we have to really be mindful of that, because every morning and every afternoon, kids are either being picked up or dropped off. And I can also say, since this was the second time a vehicle went through our hedge, my husband, my dog, were about to go outside, and when it happened the first time, our son was 3 years old. And by great fortune, he and I were not in the yard. But I don't think we have to wait for there to be a fatality, with drivers or a family member of a property owner. So please give lots of great suggestions, some serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Pete Renez, 261 Chapman again. I was the fellow that got rolled over on the intersection. So I don't think Roxbury going up and down is the problem. It is South Lincoln. I think that's where you need to fix the problem with a stop sign, cut the edges off, cut the tree off, and maybe a strip or a speed bump there a little bit beforehand. That's what my recommendation is. But whatever you do, it needs to be fixed. I would just say that with the construction going on, I know a few citizens mentioned that hopefully we can get something done sooner rather than later, instead of waiting till September or whenever the next meeting is going to be. But something should happen really in the next week or so. I'm hoping that we can do that, which would be great.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, Steve Salomon from 30 North Lincoln Street. I've lived here for 26 years. Oops, did I just turn it off? Sorry. And I'm a night owl. I'm very often working in my house. It could be silent at night, in the middle of the night, and there are accidents. I can tell you that I know it's a balancing act, that we're all here to give our sides and figure out what's the best, what's most cost-effective, but what also solves or helps to solve the problem. And what's interesting to me...
Speaking to the microphone.
Sure. So what's interesting to me is it's very clear that awareness is a big deal at this intersection. Drivers need to be made aware, whatever direction they're traveling, that this intersection can be a problem. And so it's very clear. I mean, the second most recent accident a couple of weeks ago was someone speeding up Roxbury Street, couldn't make the curve because they were going so fast. And the car was sent airborne into a tree. I feel very sad for that gentleman. I don't know if he was under the influence. I know that a witness saw what happened, not directly, but passed the car and said, that guy is flying up Roxbury Street. What the heck he's not going to make it. And with a screech and a crash and a car that overturned, he was pretty banged up. So I do think it's about awareness. So the whole sight line is a big deal. I think that is probably priority. And the only reason why I say that, I don't know if someone from the Frink property is here, but that property owner, the Frink house right on Roxbury Street in the corner of North Lincoln, I believe he's contemplating replacing his fence. So now would be the time to possibly contact him and see if you can get your easement or whatever it is that you need for sightline. Because if he puts up a new fence right there, it actually might make it worse. So I think it's about awareness. And what I would recommend, I mean, there's some extremes. There's do nothing, that's one extreme, because that's not a solution at all, to some major infrastructure. I would recommend, and I do believe, and I'm not an expert, but that a blinking light installed over the intersection with red going for the two North and South Lincoln and a yellow for everyone, that automatically, no extra bumps, no extra, major signs. I mean, I think signs are still needed, but I believe that putting a blinking light there, it makes enough people more aware. I live between Beaver and Roxbury. I'm amazed that I know people are blowing past the Beaver Street stop sign. I know they're blasting right up, and I know they're blasting right through the Roxbury Street stop sign. I hear it every night. It's frequent. So I think that awareness now is this going to all solve it for that kind of a driver? Probably not. But I do think we need to look at the possibility of bringing better awareness and in this case, obeying the law. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
A lot of good suggestions. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, I don't know if this is a question for Public Works or the city attorney or some combination. I mean, functionally, it's a question for the city attorney. Is this an either or for us tonight? I'm thinking about the way our ordinance process works, right? And so by the time that we actually got to approving stop signs to be installed and they were going to be installed, we'd be looking at the fall on the way that our schedule's going now. We're going to have to vote on the ordinance and then vote on council to introduce the ordinance and then see the ordinance for the first time and then have it come back here. On the other side of that, we put on more time and allow conversations to continue, and maybe those conversations yield a result that is improving things there, or maybe they don't. Is there a motion that this committee can make tonight that would allow for the four-way stop sign process to begin? Doesn't say we have to ultimately vote for that ordinance in a few months when we get the chance, but that would not preclude other potential solutions that aren't that from happening, because I don't want us to kind of be frozen doing nothing for months when I think it's clear, regardless of what we think the solution should be, that there needs to be something done. Is there a way that we can do both of those things?
I think so, and I'd want Public Works to confirm that they're comfortable with this, but there's a possibility of voting to refer it to the city manager for like immediate action from Public Works, but the risk of that is that whatever remedial action they take now might be different than what the community or this committee decides ultimately to do, if they don't want to do a four-way stop or something different. But I think if there's guidance for something immediate, they could act, but like you said, there would definitely need to be an ordinance to put that into the code for a stop sign. And it does sound like there's multiple options at play, so how that shakes out may not be what you pick.
Go.
Thank you. So what I guess, let me tell you what the end result that I would like to be and see if I can work it backwards with you and Public Works from there. I think that I would like for us to begin the process of introducing ordinance for a four-way stop here. I do not want that to preclude Public Works and the petitioners from working on interim solutions that may or may not work in the way that we're hoping. So I would like for both things to be able to happen.
Can I jump in, Mr. Chair? So staff does not need you like the council to vote to tell us to introduce an ordinance. So if the committee gives us the feedback that you think that might be a viable option, we can introduce an ordinance next week at council. That'll obviously be your last meeting before the summer break. Then it'll be referred to MSFI. You'll end up taking it, deliberating on it at September 23rd, the same night that we would return with probably a suite, a Chinese menu of options to consider. The four-way ordinance would be one of the options that would be available to you at that point.
And to add into it, there's this thing called the police emergency powers, where this can be done right away.
Out of my league.
I've been around long enough that, yes, whether this rises to that level, but it is a possibility that could be considered at the next council meeting. I don't want to preclude all the analysis and suggestions that you are going to come up with and jump right to that.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm suggesting is that both could proceed in parallel, and they would both hit your agenda on the same night.
But what I'm saying, and everyone hands down for that. What I'm saying is that this does not have to be introduced in September, acted on in October, and by the time we actually see it happen, it's November. It can happen a lot quicker than that, if that is the will of the council. So, yep.
Thank you. I want to just echo what someone had said about the intersection and not to get derailed too much, but two things. The intersection, the entrance to the park, I really think that's a great place to take a look and see what can be done there, because that seems to be the source of it, and honestly, it's terrifying to cross that. Second thing, I just want to make sure that when we hear of a problem at an intersection, and this isn't the first time this has come up, but I want to make sure that we are checking to make sure that all signs that are supposed to be there are there, and all signs that are there are visible to the people who need to see them. I just want to make sure that we're doing that.
So on the second point, Mr. Chair, speaking with some of the neighbors this week, it was brought to my attention that there was some visibility issues. Now, honestly, we're not going to take down a mature street tree. That would not be popular. But what I think we want to look at doing is adding a advanced warning for that stop sign. So a couple hundred feet before the stop sign, we'll put up a sign that says "stop sign ahead," basically. And we have some flexibility. That doesn't require council action. There's already a stop sign there. And that's just implementing the council's action. So that's something that we can look at right away. The second point that you had about the putting a stop sign at Reservoir Street, and I'm going to sound like court here for a minute, but I even less recommend that as an option, and I'll tell you why. One of the problems I mentioned, having too many stop signs creates compliance issues. When a driver goes through a stop sign 20 times and doesn't see any cross traffic coming, entering, anybody crossing the street, they're basically getting trained to violate that stop sign. If there's no reason for it to be there, that we're basically going to train them to blow stop signs.
Can I follow up with that? So to be clear, I did not suggest a stop sign specifically. I said that we should take a look at the safety at that intersection because it is the entrance to a park and it is the precursor to a lot of this traffic coming down the hill.
Okay, I apologize. I misunderstood you.
Back there, yes.
Good evening. I'm Fiona Laurie. I live at 74 South Lincoln Street, and I'm also the business manager at Gathering Waters School, which is on South Lincoln Street. And I would just like to say that the school would be very, very much in favor of having a raised speed hump in front of the school on South Lincoln Street, and also at the entrance to the park, where we go up the hill on Wilbur Street and we cross Reservoir into the park multiple times a day, 5 days a week during school season. And I can say that as a resident on South Lincoln Street, the level of traffic, and especially at night, in the evenings, of people roaring through and then having to screech to a stop if they realize there's a stop sign is quite alarming. And I think that a speed hump that was there all the time would slow them down on South Lincoln and be that much more of a help to realize that there's a stop sign. It becomes a drag race, and it is definitely the road that gets used to come into town from Eastern Ave and then come down Roxbury Street. And when you've been roaring down South Lincoln and you're going to make a left, as neighbors have pointed out, you're much less likely to pause long enough to see the traffic coming from either direction. Yeah. And I would say that much more so than the hedge, it is actually the telephone pole that is on the corner of South Lincoln and Roxbury that causes visibility issues when you also can't see up the hill very far. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please.
Julie Nez, again, 261 Chapman Road. I just wanted to point out that there is already a stop sign ahead sign on South Lincoln heading north. The problem is that you see that sign that indicates that there's a stop sign ahead, which makes you look for a stop sign, but if you don't see the stop sign, you're still not going to stop. So while I understand that mature trees are important, we're not going to cut down the tree, that's fine, then maybe the flashing red light becomes more of an option, because right now it doesn't matter if there's a stop sign ahead sign, the stop sign is not visible.
Thank you. getting a lot of good suggestions, which is leading towards probably what I was thinking, that city staff needs to consider all of these. I don't just want to act in haste and think that we've solved it. At least that's my own thought. Ultimately, I could see a four-way stop in the future, but I'd like to give city staff the opportunity to digest all that has been said. My own thought. Yes, ma'am, and then back to you.
Thank you. Jennifer Sizo, 10 Fairfield Court. I don't recall if the stripes are at all four ways at that intersection. Do they need to be repainted? Would that help, like immediate, quickly?
They get repainted once a year.
Okay.
And
I can't remember what they look like.
they're currently kind of halfway in between.
Okay, just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to get a sense of and I agree with you, there's a lot to explore here. I'd like to get a sense of the committee around placing this on more time for staff to, develop some options based on this feedback, but then also making clear our intent that we would like to see an initial ordinance introduced on this. I don't know if that's where I'm thinking. I don't know if that's the sense of the committee, and I want to make sure that staff have clear direction.
Yeah. Counselor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the Director of Public Works, I think that strong action is warranted, and I would like to try a four-way stop, maybe with the dangerous intersection ahead on Roxbury, maybe a flashing light or something. I would like to see the, Chinese menu of options that they can bring forward. I think if it turns out that it doesn't work, at least we've tried what the community asked for. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Maybe it will work. If it doesn't work after a year or so, the community will come back and say, hey, this isn't working. So I would like to head in that direction.
Okay, history says once it's in, but.
Well, that's gonna be
It wouldn't be the
up to
one.
them.
No, we don't, anyway. Okay, what do you think, Counselor?
I wouldn't be opposed to the four-way stop signs and implementing that sooner rather than later. I am still concerned about the cars coming down Roxbury and having enough time to stop and potentially rear-ending someone. But as Councilor Ellis pointed out, that's less of a risk than head-on collisions at an intersection. I also wouldn't be opposed to using those temporary speed tables that we have and putting those strategically, possibly at South Lincoln near the school, and somewhere between Terrace Street and Reservoir Street on Roxbury.
Okay, again, this is a lot of options, and we're trying to do this on the fly. Again, I think that city staff needs to digest and come up with a plan.
And can I just?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that those would be immediate temporary solutions to try to mitigate the situation now, while we're allowing city staff more time for a permanent solution.
Yep, Councilor Tobin.
I would feel comfortable starting the process of making it a four-way stop. If when it comes back to the committee in September, if we decide that Public Works has implemented or come up with all of these other better solutions, then maybe we choose not to implement that. But I think it's worth getting the process started now.
Okay, well, since city attorney, well, and then back to you again. We could have a motion to direct staff to prepare the motion, at the same time, list of other options, realizing that we're running into our summer break and that this is way too much time in between meetings to deal with this, in my mind, but that's what it is. So when we do come back in August, we could have the proposal for the four-way stop, Public Works could come in and say, no, that is not the best. We can do speed humps on who knows where, or anything else that they come up with. Is that a good compromise, City Attorney, you think?
I think that could work. To Councilor Favalise's question as well was if you wanted to start that earlier, if you wanted DPW to come in with an ordinance at the next council meeting for you to talk about at your next committee meeting, it would be like we had talked about, basically leaving it up to their discretion of what the ordinance is going to say. It could try to capture what your conversation is, or you could change it to be what you end up deciding, but because there's so many options, it's unclear, if what they're recommending ends up being what you want at the end of the day, so.
Gotcha.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I agree with Councilor Tobin, and I think also what Councilor Favalise implied. If we find other interim solutions and they're working, then they don't have to be interim. They can be permanent solutions, and we don't have to move forward. But it's good to get the ball rolling, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to clarify with the city attorney. So would speed humps need to, I guess I'm confused about what could be in an ordinance that beyond the stop sign. Would speed humps need to be in the ordinance that we?
May I?
Yeah.
Really, of the things that we're talking about tonight, only the stop sign would require an ordinance. Speed humps, I can do under my own authority. Any signage, like advanced warning signage, that's all, within my discretion to do. If the option was, there was talk about a flashing red light, yellow light traffic signal, that would require significant funding. Those systems are pretty pricey, so that would end up being like a resolution to appropriate funds. So, that'll be an option that we can bring forward for discussion in September, but that would be a longer-term solution. But everything else that we've talked about, I think, is doable just without an ordinance.
Good.
So the ordinance that I would be bringing forward would just be to add the four-way stop. Yeah.
I think we maybe have a good direction. We've heard anything new?
Kelly on 107 Peg Shop. Just a quick note, it sounds like we're coming to a consensus here, and that's great. I myself, when I travel down, for instance, Winchester Street, the big speed humps by the college, it's cause for pause. You slow down, your speed is drastically reduced. And I think having humps in addition to the stop signs are gonna slow people down. You're not gonna fly over there. If you're out of state, perhaps, but someone said it earlier, you're gonna do it once. So it really gets you to slow down. People can still blitz through stop signs, they cannot read signs, but when there's a hump and your suspension is rocked, you're gonna slow down and you're gonna come to that intersection, abide by the stop sign. So I think a twofer here is the path forward, and that's what I would be voting for.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. This has been great. A lot of good public input on this. There's just one counselor we haven't heard from, and he's got nothing to say. Go, motion.
Mr. Chair, people ask me sometimes, what they should do if they want to run for council, and I say, come to a meeting like this and see if you really it's still as exciting as you think. For me, the answer is yes. So I'm going to move to place this item on more time to allow for staff to develop options for consideration at our next MSFI meeting. And
come forward with.
Okay, and direct staff the city manager to introduce an ordinance for a four-way stop at this intersection.
Second.
Motion's been and seconded. So just to translate, there will come forth the ordinance requesting the four-way stop. It'll be up to the committee and the council whether that happens. But in the meantime, city staff is going to analyze everything that's been said, come up with recommendations, and hopefully we'll get a solution. Yes?
Just along those lines, just so the public is understanding. So the August 6th will be the next city council meeting. The next MSFI meeting won't be until September 23rd, and then it will be back for a second reading, if that's what you choose to do there, at October 1st. So time frame wise, just making sure everybody's aware.
Yep. Anything further, committee? Public? All in favor? Unanimous, good. Thank you all for coming, and you don't have to leave, there's the whole meeting. so.
Yeah. As a petitioner, I just want to thank the committee for the thoughtfulness that's been applied and for the dialogue that allows for our entire neighborhood to represent multiple points of view. I think a successful conclusion will always include me trimming my hedge. And I promise to keep doing that.
Good, thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward. Okay, item 3, this is Eversource Energy requesting temporary access and use of Old Gilsum Road for Eversource transmission structure replacement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, Public Works Director. Just going to do a quick introduction. The folks from REMI are good. Come on up and take your seats. The folks from Eversource are here to make a request to the City Council. Their request actually has 2 parts. One is access to their power line off of Old Gilsum Road. The second part of their request relates to breaching of a stone wall that marks the boundary between city property and Eversource property. In the first instance, the city attorney and the city engineer and I have looked at this and reviewed it. And according to the way that the city code is written, it says Old Gilsum Road is closed to vehicle traffic except owners of property abutting Old Gilsum Road are allowed to use Old Gilsum Road to access their property. The property in question that Eversource is trying to get to is actually an Eversource-owned parcel. So they have inherent authority to access it, to maintain and access their property. That said, they still are required to get excavation permit from the city in order to do work on that right-of-way. I believe they will be doing some minor grading improvements and whatnot, so that process is already underway. The second part of their request is related to breaching a stone wall, and this falls under New Hampshire state law. A stone wall in New Hampshire that marks the boundary between 2 properties cannot be moved or breached without the consent of both abutting property owners. So in order to move that stone wall so that they can replace the tower they're looking to replace, they do need the city council's authority to do that, and that's the item on the agenda tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to, and I'm sorry I don't know your last name, Remy Schneider from Eversource Energy.
Microphone.
I'm really doing a good job here. Mr. Chairman, councilors, thank you for having us tonight. Do you have any specific questions to start us off, or would you like me to?
Well, there was one that the Public Works Director sort of answered. The fact that is or is not a scenic road, does that have any bearing in this? He says not. Okay. This project is not just stringing wires. This is a pretty significant project, is it?
We have 5 structures that we plan on replacing in this to basically finish off what we would consider an asset condition replacement project. So these are the last 5 structures in this stretch.
Okay. Committee have any questions? Yeah.
Sometimes with the movement of disturbed earth, whenever there's construction and projects, a lot of times you end up with either introducing invasive species or them being moved, so fines and whatever. And I'm just curious about what your strategies are for managing that and limiting that. And
So typically we're under, we have to go through the state to do any of our environmental process reviews. And they have strict guidelines on how to deal with invasive species specifically. That typically includes brushing or spraying off any mats or equipment that is brought through invasive species areas. That's typically how we would do that. If you keep the soil from invasive species areas within that specific location, that generally allows us to do that work.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question about the project itself. We had roads before this, we have roads after this, and I want just one question that's not roads. So the asset replacement, is this, I assume, going to strengthen the grid and strengthen the resilience of the physical infrastructure.
Correct. The wooden structures are from 1975, and they have not been replaced since. So at this point, they have been deemed either too old or there is some type of structural integrity issue. Either woodpeckers, insects, bears, you name it, it can happen. And they'll be replaced with the weathered steel that you see commonly across the state.
Thank you.
Well, as long as your associate has survived the first discussion, do you have anything you want to add to this, or do you say it all?
No, good evening, Council. Joshua Perez, I'm the project manager on this project. Really have nothing to add. I think Remy already answered all the questions, and it sounds like the conversation's already been handled for the most part. So I think unless there's any specific questions about the stone wall, then I have
Not for
nothing to
me.
add.
Just, we appreciate you coming and speaking with us, and it sounds pretty straightforward to me anyway. Committee, anything? Public, anything? How about a motion?
That's me. I move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to negotiate and execute agreements with Eversource Energy for the removal of a portion of the stone wall marking the boundary between parcel number 218-006 and 212-030, and for an access agreement to allow construction of a temporary gravel road on Old Gilsum Road.
Second.
Motion's made, seconded by Councilor Tobin. Anything further? Public? All in favor? Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, next we are on, where are we? Item 4, proposed rumble strips on Route 12 and Route 9.
I feel a bit like the master of ceremonies tonight. For the next act, I'm going to introduce Corey Spetalunas. Did I say that close? That's pretty good. All right. Corey Spetalunas from NHDOT. He's going to give you a presentation on the proposed rumble strips for Route 9.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you guys doing? Good evening so far. So I'm here for actually this one and the next one, but we'll kind of divide and conquer here. I am the safety section project manager for the department. As Don mentioned, my name is Corey Spetalunas. I am here to speak about rumble strips on Route 12, primarily in the northern portion of Keene for this particular stretch. I'll try to keep it brief for the most part. This project is including rumble strips all the way from Fitzwilliam all the way up to Newport. So the Mass border all the way through Claremont and Newport up on the northern end. Routes 12, 11, and 9 are included. Quick overview of our agenda. I'll do a quick project purpose and crash information. Why are we here doing rumble strips? Benefits of rumble strips, specific project locations as it relates to Keene. What are our next steps and what I'm looking for from the city. So the project purpose, I usually like to start this with kind of a rhetorical question to the audience. It's a little different presenting to a committee as opposed to a lot of public, as I noticed most of the audience is left. But I like to kind of propose this as, most people think of a lane departure as like your vehicle has fully entered the shoulder or the lane. That's not necessarily what it is. As soon as your tire crosses that line, you've departed your lane. It doesn't take much to hit another vehicle, a bike, a ped, pedestrian, or otherwise. So a lot of this is really addressing the risk and the potential that may occur for anyone that might leave their lane even just a little bit. So some of the outcomes that can occur, most of these are the same, obviously. Roadway departure, you've left the road, you can't get back, you've hit a fixed object, tree, telephone pole, mailbox, house, whatever. Maybe the embankment's steep and there's no guardrail, you've flipped your vehicle. Worst case scenario, you've hit a person or a bicycle or another vehicle. We like to look at crash history. This is a systemic effort, meaning that the crash history is a supporting factor, but is not the factor as to why we're installing the rumble strips. This is a preventative effort to deter people from having these sorts of crashes in the future. Keene is highlighted a few rows down, notably during the 7-8 year period from July to December 2017 to 2024. Total crashes that we have on Route 12 in Keene was 42. 16 of those were run off the road, or sorry, I read this chart backwards. 58 crashes, 16 of which were run off the roads for a total of 28%. That is a little lower than the corridor average, but it's still not great. Looking at just injury and fatality crashes, which is really what we stem to prevent and hopefully eliminate, there's been 14 crashes. As I mentioned, 5 of those were the run off the road, 9 were others. 36% of those resulted in injuries. And as Don alluded during the Always Stop discussion, usually those types of crashes result in more significant injuries. You know, high speeds coming at each other, hitting a fixed object, hitting a vulnerable user. Roadway departure statistics, our latest full year of statistics is in 2024, just with the way the crash data is processed and the lag time. You can see the number of fatals and percentages nationwide. New Hampshire, while having obviously a much lower number, as we're a smaller state, 60% of our fatalities are due to roadway departures, whether it's off the shoulder or beyond the center line. And that equates to 72 out of our 120 crashes from 2024. Last year was very similar percentages. I expect it'd probably be about the same this year too. The part on this slide I really want to stress is that although we can't predict exactly where people will leave their lane in either direction and cause a crash, we can predict the types of facilities that are more apt to those sorts of crashes happening. Higher speed, narrow lanes, even wide shoulders. People feel more comfortable driving faster. They stop paying attention. There's just a lot of risk that we're trying to mitigate here. Fatal crash history just by year. You can see a minor spike in 2024. We're hoping to hopefully bring that number down to 0. These are all from lane departures in one direction or the other. What are rumble strips? For anyone that's not familiar, we did talk about transverse briefly. Rumble strips are a milled, I had a picture somewhere, are a milling of the pavement in a particular pattern. The ones shown here on the center, I think my cursor shows up. The ones on the center line are the more traditional, what we call rectangular rumble strips, whereas the rectangular section milled out. We are proposing sinusoidal rumble strips, which I'll get into a little bit more. If you recall from your high school math classes, it's more of a sine wave, so it's a fully milled pattern that is in a sine wave. It does result in less noise that I'll touch on in just a moment as well. So why are we here discussing rumble strips? Basically because they're very effective for the amount of cost that they have. Head-on crashes are reduced anywhere from 44 to 64% by the addition of centerline rumble strips. Going the opposite direction for vehicles leaving the roadway on the shoulder side, anywhere from 13 to 51. I realize it's a very large range, but a lot of the studies actually are closer to the 50% than the lower range. So they are effective in both directions. They are very low cost. We can do about a mile of rumble strips for about 12 grand. That's a fully bid project, all inclusive, traffic control, everything. And the short construction exposure. Sometimes construction projects can last a while. We've put in 50 miles, I think, in the last project, and it took them 2 weeks. I mean, it's very quick. So very minimal disruptions to traffic. When we're looking at rumble strips, we do have some requirements we need to abide by. The most important is that we need to at least have a 40-mile-an-hour posted speed. Anything below that, not that it's not necessarily useful to have rumble strips, but you're not going to feel them as vividly in your vehicle. They're not going to be as effective. The pavement has to be in good condition. We don't want to cause something that's going to cause the pavement to unravel and become a maintenance issue. We also have width requirements so that if people are trying to stay away, give a little bit of space from the rumbles just because they're aware they're there and they don't want to hit them. They just do to have that little extra buffer. So we do have a minimum of 28 feet total, which is the shoulder plus the lane width, to qualify for a centerline rumble strip. And for a shoulder rumble strip, we do require at least 6 feet. And that still leaves enough room for bicyclists to be on the shoulder in addition to the cars. So here's the one I thought I had earlier. This is the rectangular pattern that you may be more used to. If you go on the interstate, this is what you're going to see. This pattern is what we are proposing to install. We've officially changed all of our rumble strip projects that are not interstate to this pattern for this reason. Works better a little in PowerPoint, so I'll walk through it a little bit. Don alluded to the decibel level. I want to just reinforce that a change of 10 decibels on this scale is double the volume. So we have, with the yellow arrow here, we have 74 is the decibel level of a vehicle hitting the sinusoidal rumbles, which we would put in, at 60, which is probably a reasonably average speed for Route 9 north of here. Likewise, a strike on a traditional rumble strip, which you would find on the interstate, is an 81, so that's a change of 7. So you're looking at, maybe not quite double, but it's getting there. And then for comparison, I always like to have this truck, which represents a Jake brake / air brake, if you're concerned about name brand things. That's about 105, so you're looking at 30-ish, so you've gone up double, 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 so you're at 8 times. And then a motorcycle is even 10 decibels higher than that. So if you're going double, you're at 16 times higher than these sinusoidal rumble strips are going to sound. And I bring that up because usually one of the major concerns that citizens have is the noise. And I get it. I don't live near rumble strips. I wouldn't want to hear them in the middle of the night either. But I also don't want to hear someone hit a tree outside my yard either. So I realize they are a sudden noise, and going from nighttime crickets and solemn noises to zzz, with a car hitting them is very disturbing. But so is a car hitting a tree. So, and it's very brief. People don't normally ride the rumble strips just to aggravate the neighbors, unless they really don't like the person. So in terms of effectiveness, strike that from the record. In terms of effectiveness in New Hampshire, we had on Route 16 through Wakefield, we installed rumble strips back in 2011, which is in the middle of this chart, outlined by the green vertical bars. Beforehand, those orange bars represent the crash rate of lane departure crashes that occurred before the rumble strips happened. So we're looking at almost 6 crashes a year through this particular 11-mile stretch on 16 before rumble strips were installed. And notably, looking at the AADT on the bottom, which is the annual average daily traffic, the volume of vehicles traveling this road, just over 8,000. If you flip to the right side of the chart and look at the after rumble strip installation numbers, we're at almost 3.2 crashes per year, which is almost in half, again, supporting those 50% numbers we looked at earlier, even though the traffic has grown by 2,000 vehicles a day. So just kind of shows that even though the traffic has grown 20%, the crashes have still dropped dramatically. Getting into Keene specific locations, this is oriented a little weird. North is actually to the right. There's a north arrow hiding up here if you haven't found it. So we are proposing, the way this is laid out is, the legend is up on the top left here. 3 lines are proposing center line as well as both shoulder rumbles. A line on just one side of the center line or other is shoulder, and down the middle is center line. So this is proposing to install rumble strips on Route 12, basically from the intersection with 9 up north. And I think it's just the one sheet for Keene. Through everywhere that's eligible. Small breaks at exit 2, and I think there's a bridge through here that we're skipping over, but that's the intent for this. This project is pretty fast paced. We are planning on advertising it next month. Not to say nothing can't change at that point, but that's just the timeline we're looking at. This would be, I should not say this spring, but construction next spring, 27 would be start. And then a completion day. It could be any time in that time frame, whenever the contractor gets out there. Like I said, it's usually only a couple of weeks for them to do it. It's just a matter of them fitting in their construction schedule. And then obviously, just like the Wakefield study I looked at, we would continue to observe this and see how this has affected the crash rates. So there's my contact information. The biggest piece, aside from just informational for you guys, is if there are any concerns in the areas that we're proposing rumble strips where local input would say maybe not there or otherwise. So I appreciate the time, and I.
Thank you. Simple question. I assume this presentation is required by your
The
operations?
offer to present it was required, yes.
Okay, so we're not saying yes or no, we're just saying thank you for coming?
If you were absolutely against them, like, they don't have to go in.
No, I'm just.
But yeah.
I just want to get the parameters of.
Yeah,
It was a great presentation. It was great.
Our current rumble strip guidance is that if we're installing rumbles in a community that doesn't have them already, we like to reach out to at least do something like this so that they know why we're doing it and what the benefits are.
Okay, would this go on Route 9 towards Old Concord Road, Sullivan Road, that far along?
Where's Sullivan on here?
Probably not.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. It's not on Route 9 at all. It's on 11 and 12.
Where is 11?
Well, 11 is further north.
11's further north.
In Keene, it's on Route 12. So it goes from the Route 9, 10, 12
Okay.
interchange, that big loop, all the way to the Surrey town line on Route 12.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
I said Route 9 earlier.
Committee,
I apologize.
questions? Anything? Yes.
More of a attention to detail that as I'm driving,
Mhm.
I see the rumble strips through Antrim on Route 9, and they've deteriorated the road quite a bit in the median. How do we prevent that from happening here in Keene?
I saw that driving over. That would be a pavement condition thing, and I don't know if they were put in maybe like too early, because there is a certain time period for the pavement to set, to cure essentially, to then be receptive, so that doesn't happen. Or they were put in when the pavement condition wasn't such that they would not cause that issue. So we vetted through all of this through our Materials and Research Bureau, and they have the pavement conditions of all the state-maintained roads. So that's the first thing we make sure is that it's not going to cause that problem that you're referring to.
Okay, great, because it's not in good condition. Thank you.
Anything from the public? Committee? Question and then a motion.
Sorry. Just a quick question about the data and, so the percentage of the run off the road crashes was lower for Keene than in other
Mhm.
areas, and you said that was, you were talking about this corridor of highway, that was lower. And I'm just curious if that has anything to do with how data is reported. I don't know whether it's you collecting data or if it's like, yeah.
It could. Our data usually comes from the local police. So if there's either a delay or missing information, and then it goes through the DPW and Department of Safety before it gets to DOT. We're working on streamlining that. So there could be certainly omissions or misinformation that's represented there as far as Keene's information.
Good. Motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I didn't see
That's
you.
all right, I just raised my hand. JB Mack, 21 Pine Ave. I just want to, can you go back to the map, Corey, of where the project is? I just want to make sure I'm looking at the map correctly, but Wyman Road, the intersection with Route 12 would be a place where want to make sure that you wouldn't be having rumble strips through that area, I think. So
Correct.
if you can verify that, I actually get confused looking at the map to see if that's the case or not.
Yeah, so we would have breaks in the shoulders, and then the center line would have a gap at the intersection itself. Yeah.
Good. Director?
Along those lines, it's a little off your map, Corey, because the entrance to our transfer station is actually in Surrey. But that's a pretty high volume intersection, a driveway into that facility. So if we could leave a break there, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll confirm. Typically, we leave breaks if there's a high volume or a facility like that, so, but I'll confirm.
Anyone else? Okay. Counselor?
Move to recommend the report from the New Hampshire Department of Transportation be accepted as informational.
Second.
Seconded by Council Workman. Anything from the committee? Public? All in favor? Thank you for coming. Drive safe.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Oh.
Did you want to intro this one too, or are we good? I'm just asking.
Up next is Corey. The next item is related to a roadway safety audit conducted at the intersection of Route 9 with Wickham's Mill Road. As you know, that this was a important topic for some residents in that area. There has been a lot of crashes in there. We were able to apply for a roadway safety audit. They did that audit, and now they're reporting on the results.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I didn't mean to ask for celebrity treatment. So as Don mentioned, this is our road safety audit. This is a process that cities and RPCs can apply for the DOT and other stakeholders to come out and basically evaluate what's working and what's not as far as safety is concerned at specific locations. So this is for Route 9 at Wickham's Mill Road. I don't want to discard our mission and statement, but that's not what we're here for. So I'm going to skim through those. As far as just to get everyone on board with location, Route 9 and Wickham's Mill Road intersection is off to the western side of the state towards Chesterfield. Zoomed in view, you can see it is a relatively traditional four-way intersection. Wickham's Mill Road is north-south. It is stop controlled on both legs. Route 9 is left to right, east to west, with a minor horizontal curve. Breaking those down a little bit more, Route 9 is about 14,000 vehicles a day on average. That is a counter from last year providing that information. Posted speed of 55 with an average speed of 56. We do have access to TomTom probe data, which is where this average and 85th percentile come from. For anyone not familiar, the 85th percentile is typically the speed we use to set speed limits. That number is 85% of the traffic is going at or below that speed, so 15% is exceeding that speed limit or that speed threshold. So that number for this particular location is 61 miles an hour on Route 9, and it is a 12-foot travel lanes, 10-foot shoulders on both directions. Wickham's Mill Road, this is the southern portion looking north. This has about 1,000 cars a day, about 24 to 28 feet wide total, depending on which part of the road you're on. It does have a significant vertical grade coming up to the intersection, which you can see that truck is parked on right now. It is stop controlled, as I mentioned, but there are no stop bars present. There are also no other pavement markings such as center line or edge lines. This is a town-owned facility. The other side is much more minor, so I don't have a slide specifically for that, but the same conditions apply over there. It has a stop sign, no stop bars, just much lower volume. Bit background on this. This was submitted back in 2023. Our safety section was going through a personnel shortage, which is why it took a little while to get to. But we did conduct the RSA back in April of 25. We used 11 years of crash data from 2012 to 2022, which is what was provided with the RSA. That had a total of 30 crashes, and we got the final report generated earlier this month. So quick overview of the crash types, again, documented crash types at this intersection. 64% of them are at least multi-vehicle. There is a notable amount of animal crashes, vulnerable road user being pedestrians or bicycle, and a fair sliver of fixed objects as well. Severity, as I mentioned in the first presentation, my program, which is the Highway Safety Improvement Program, our goal is to reduce or eliminate fatal crashes or serious injury crashes. So we do look at what's happened, although that is not the only metric that we try to measure these by. This is using the CABCO scale, where A is a serious injury, so they had 2 of those. B is a minor injury, and I don't know how many numbers that equates to, but you're looking at 6 or 7. C is a possible injury. And these are all identified by the reporting officers. So, if they need to be taken away by ambulance, if they can leave by their own power, if they obviously have an injury and like a broken arm or such, that's how these are determined. O is property damage only, so you can see just over half of those were no injury. We do like to break down the crash data in a few different ways. We're going to start with month, and I like to, if you guys have any inclination onto maybe why there might be spikes or not. Otherwise, I'm happy to hear them. We do see November and December have a little bit of spike, likely inclement weather would be our guess. By day of week, Saturday is likely having higher traffic, so again, that makes sense to us too. Wednesday spike, I'm not necessarily sure of. Sometimes we ask if there's like a prominent, I know the transfer station is not in this area, but something to that degree that maybe is attracting traffic because it's open that day. Crash analysis by time of day, you can see a pretty big spike right at noontime. Again, that makes sense too. People commuting for lunches, maybe in a little bit more of a hurry, taking a little more risk, not always having a payoff. So here's the RSA stakeholders that participated in our road safety audit. We did have Keene Fire and Police. Don joined us from the DPW. We had Southwest Regional Planning Commission. DOT had safety, traffic, and our District 4, which is our maintenance group, present. VHB was our consultant working on this one for us, and Federal Highway Administration. When we do these, we like to obviously identify what's not working, but we also like to identify what is working. So that list consisted of the pavement condition was in good shape. Route 9 has wide shoulders, being 10 feet on each direction. The pavement markings, aside from what I mentioned on Whitcomb's Mill, were there and in good condition. The sight distance, for the most part, is very good. The existing signs are in good condition and should be where they're located. And there are centerline rumble strips already in this stretch of road. What we did find in terms of issues, we divided into 5 categories. The first being driver behavior issues. Obviously, we highlighted the speed initially. Also, high-speed left turns. It's a little bit difficult to see in this particular slide. This UPS truck is making a left turn onto Whitcomb's Mill, which is just off the screen to the right. They are fully in the other lane, despite the rumble strips in my previous presentation. Also passing on the shoulder, while that is a pretty normal function for people to use the shoulder as a bypass to go around like left-turning vehicles, it does create potential problems if there is a bicyclist over there or someone's trying to pull out of the side road and their bumper is in the shoulder. The second category was sight distance and visibility, which primarily focused around the grade of the southern approach of Whitcomb's Mill Road. You can see the guardrail in the bottom right here. Does provide quite a bit of a sight obstruction. This photo was obviously taken by someone standing, so if you're sitting in a car, especially a sedan-sized vehicle, that guardrail is going to be much more of a visual obstruction than indicated in that picture. There is some vegetation concerns in another quadrant, and there is no overhead lighting to just bring conspicuity to this intersection. The final 3 attributes we had for this was no multimodal accommodations. I did note the shoulders are 10 feet, so in theory you can use that for bikes and pedestrians, but with vehicles going 60 miles an hour next to you, it's not a comfortable experience. Also, the road geometry through the intersection, it is the inside or outside, depending on which side of Whitcomb's Mill you're on, of a horizontal curve for New Hampshire 9, and there are no turn lanes present on 9. And then just as not something we can necessarily do about, but it was a concern, is during certain parts of the year there is sun glare and that winter weather that we do have to accommodate. So we like to break those into, what can we actually do to mitigate some of those issues? So we like to break those into near-term improvements, which are usually, a lot of those end up being town responsibilities, but we'll walk through them. And it's usually like vegetation, shorter-term things that can happen without a whole lot of impacts or cost. And then we'll go through intermediate that might require a little bit more, and then long-term that would be significant impacts or cost. So as far as near-term, there is some vegetation in one of the quadrants that we've identified, and I have a plan to show in a minute to show where that is. Being a town road, visibility from the town road would be on the town to mitigate that sightline. Relocate the guardrail that I showed on the previous slide further away from the edge of pavement to increase that sight distance. That would obviously be on the DOT being a state facility, or install overhead lighting to bring conspicuity to the intersection. As far as intermediate term safety improvements, restriping 9 to have left turn lanes in one or both directions. That is an intermediate because we would have to look in to see what the shoulder structural strength is of that roadway to see if it would accommodate traffic moving over 6 to 12 feet and not cause maintenance issues for the shoulder at that point. Also, installing gateway treatments, whether that's in the form of a median buffer, which would be paint with rumble strips inside, or a median island, which would be curbed. And then long-term, we do have roundabout, or profile adjustments along New Hampshire 9, or also on Wickham's Mill Road to adjust the vertical on the southern leg. So concept one, this is a bit of a hodgepodge. These are not, and I'm going to ultimately ask, and it doesn't have to necessarily be today, but I'm going to ask for concurrence from the city for alternatives to potentially pursue as part of this. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through this. And this is a la carte. This is 3 concepts that we have with different components included, but it's not necessarily all or nothing for any of them. So just keep that in mind. So this first one includes clearing, which is in this southwest quadrant. This service is really pulling out of the southern leg of this intersection, looking west, relocate the guardrail, which would likely be done in conjunction with a resurfacing project. That would be a DOT effort. And also adding left turn lanes. Again, we just need to do our homework to make sure that we're not compromising the shoulders at that point. Option B, zoom in a little bit here. Option B is adding those kind of gateway treatments that I alluded to. That's kind of these lines in the middle of the road. This is the existing condition up at the top here, 12-foot travel lane, 10-foot shoulder on each side of the road. We have one option that would add a 6-foot median buffer. If you've been through 101 in Milford, that's what we installed there a few years ago. So that has 6 feet of yellow line to yellow line with 2 strips of rumbles on the middle. Or the bottom one is a 4-foot raised median island, just to provide that channelization a little bit. This also includes reconstructing the Whitcomb's Mill leg on the northern side, to raise those vehicles up, essentially. Whitcomb's Mill Road right now does not meet our guidance. Usually we have to provide a platform for vehicles to be able to enter the road from a fairly level starting point so that they can accelerate in a timely manner. So that would be basically to accommodate that. That would also increase your sight line over that guardrail too for the majority of vehicles. And then also relocating the guardrail as well as part of this one. Third is a roundabout. That's a roundabout. There's not a whole lot to say there. I know there's a lot of roundabouts in Keene, so I'm not going to beat the horse there. With the caveat to a lot of this, I'm going to preface this with my program, my highway safety improvement program, requires a certain benefit cost ratio in order to use those monies for safety improvements. And a lot of that is based on the crash history and the type of safety improvement based on the cost. That ratio has to be a 1.0 or over to be eligible for safety money. I'm not saying these options are not off the table if they don't have that benefit cost of 1. It would just need a different funding source, which is where JB comes in. So concept 1, which, and again, this is where the a la carte thing comes in too, because we don't necessarily need to do all of these. Concept 1 had some clearing, relocating guardrail, and restriping. That did meet a 1. Whether we need to necessarily do all of that is up for discussion. Concept A is the same thing, but it does beef up the shoulders, essentially. It adds roadway material under the shoulders to make sure that they are, if they're deficient today for carrying traffic, because the roadway has a different base under it than the shoulder. It would just be an extra cost to build that up. Concepts 2 and 3, I'll start with 3 because the other way. 3 because it's easier, being the roundabout. Stop moving my cursor, sorry. You can see that benefit cost ratio is well below 1. That roundabout cost for this estimate is honestly pretty low as well. So as far as being able to be done under my money, that isn't a feasible option, but it is something that the city could consider using alternate funding sources. Concepts 2A and 2B were the median situations. 2A is the 6-foot painted median. 2B was the raised median, and again, just the cost of the raised median makes this one very unfeasible. Doing parts of 2A could push this into eligibility status. We did look at a traffic signal just to, it always comes up. Signals were not warranted at this. The Wickham's Mill Road is not have enough volume. You probably don't want to stop traffic on Route 9 like that anyway. So with that, I threw a lot at you, but.
Which option would deal with the geometry of Whitcomb's Mill Road?
The option that I would recommend to do that would be to reconstruct Whitcomb's Mill Road to bring that up higher and get that sight line better, get the ability to get into traffic. And the problem with how it is now is, it's like this, and to accelerate, it just takes longer. So you need a bigger gap on Route 9. And if you misjudge the speeds, all of a sudden they're on top of you before you know it. So leveling that platform out not only increases your sight distance in both directions, but now you can go as you would have expected.
Would that be state money?
So my money is any public road. So I could use my money to do that as long as it met the benefit cost ratio, which I meant to look at to see how much that cost before, so I'd have to confirm. But I have to imagine that would be eligible.
The other factor that is not considered, there's a parcel just on the side that is potential for more housing.
Yes.
And there could be a whole lot more traffic going on than what's being considered. So we're really looking towards the future more than the present.
Right.
So if there was a hybrid, let's say, of guardrail, striping, and the change of geometry, that would make sense to me. The roundabout, that could be the next Public Works Director, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And trying to crack into the city budget would be very difficult, and without the city manager sitting there shaking her head, and I'll just shake my head for her. Okay.
The beauty of this funding is it doesn't require any city municipality matches. It's strictly
Okay, so
public
to the
road.
Public Works Director, we're really making sausage on the fly here, so what do you think?
While he's coming up here, as I mentioned before, I think the Whitcomb's Mill platform is probably the easiest, or at least most eligible option to do. And then the guardrail relocations and adding the left turn lanes, which I think would be pretty beneficial here, could be done under a future resurfacing project, which the DOT would be responsible for.
What do you think,
So I don't think it's a secret for anybody here that I'm going to be in favor of the roundabout option. But yeah, the funding is definitely going to be a challenge. And I don't know if your previous comment about the next director was like a threat to my job, but just going to move past it.
I was just guessing that that's a 10 or 20-year conversation.
Yeah, and honestly, there are, I think there are higher priority intersections for that kind of improvement in the city than this one. And we've actually submitted an application for the 10-year plan for the Main Street Old Homestead Highway to be converted to at that intersection. I think that's a much better candidate for a roundabout conversion than this location. I do like the idea of adjusting the geometry of Wickham's Mill. Honestly, I'd have to look a little more carefully at that, about the feasibility, because Wickham's Mill continues to dive as you go further down. And I would be worried if you're bringing it up at the high end, that the rest of the road is going to get very steep. So that's something I think that warrants a little more consideration. I did have a question for the guest here. He mentioned that the vegetation would be a city responsibility, and I I think that's true even if it's within the state highway right-of-way, just because we're providing visibility to the city road, right? Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And, you know, that's something I think that Public Works should be looking at doing and pursuing regardless of what the state decides to do. Conspicuously absent on that slide was who's responsible for intersection lighting. And my understanding is that DOT at some point in the past removed intersection lighting from a lot of locations. Who would be responsible for intersection lighting?
It's a good question.
I know what I think the answer should be.
I think I know what you think the answer should be too. I know a lot of the lighting was removed because of cost concerns, but a lot of that was before LEDs and such. So I don't think it would be a huge ask. I would want to confirm with the district engineer, but I would imagine that would probably be a DOT thing.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
So to answer the chair's question, would love to see a roundabout, unlikely. The interim short-term or medium-term options with creating the turn lanes, I think would be a huge improvement.
Okay, because, again, this is not heading in the direction, it's just accepting as informational. We're making a recommendation, correct? Or not?
That's, I think, a question for you, Corey.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a specific recommendation from the city?
If it's not a certain recommendation, at least a list of alternatives that the city would consider as improvements to this intersection.
Same question again. What?
Yeah, I could talk to Don.
What do you advise our action to be?
Knowing the limitations of his funding program, the only option that we've talked about that meets that 1.0 is the concept one. That is cost effective. If the city is responsible for clearing vegetation, I can pretty much guarantee you that it's not going to cost 80 grand to clear the vegetation. I made this comment when it was still in a draft form. That $700,000 cost for adding the lanes, if it doesn't require roadway reconstruction, meaning base reconstruction, is, I think, very, very high, yeah. So I think that should be the first order of business, really.
Just to recommend option one,
Yeah.
or what? This, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So just so we're all on the same page, I mean, just because these are shown on concept 1, 2, 3, doesn't mean we have to accept all of concept 1, 2, 3. Like, if we want to try to adjust Whitcomb's Mill Road, depending on how far we'd have to chase that profile, that's something we could do as an independent project under my program, and then we could potentially address the restriping and the addition of turn lanes and the guardrail. Guardrail could be either or, but the resurfacing.
Yeah, I think
next time
the
it happens.
guardrail was in both concepts, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for having recognized me.
Yeah.
We have a committee
Yeah.
meeting going on here.
Yeah.
A question that I have is the relocating the guardrail to improve the sight distance has a benefit on this slide of $0, and yet it is one of the recommendations that has been made as a result of this audit. So how are we getting to those dollar figures?
So those dollar figures are usually derived from cost, crash modification factors, and relocating guardrail isn't necessarily something that's been studied.
Okay.
But knowing that it will improve the sight distance, we know that it is a benefit for safety.
If I could do a comment as well.
Go, yeah.
Thank you. So I drive this road every day. I work in Vermont, and so I'm up and down Route 9 on a daily basis. I really like the idea of a left turn lane here. As far as, traffic going out feet around, that's what happens anyway. There's just not the kind of lane and guardrails there. I know that it's a different situation in terms of the grade, but the turn lanes work really well at Chesterfield Road, and I would see them working pretty well here as well. So whatever the final concept that moves forward, I think that has to be an important part of the conversation.
Agreed.
What I'm sensing in this conversation is recommending concept one and seeing you again in September with the final negotiated options.
So, Mr. Chair, I think maybe Corey can explain his funding program a little bit. I don't think it's an automatic, we're going to get funding for a project. This is basically puts us in a competitive position to apply for Highway Safety Improvement Program funding.
Yes. I could program this money, it'd be a much shorter time frame than the 10-year plan. 10-year plan. I want to say probably 10-year plan, if you're familiar with that.
Committee question? Yeah.
So, thank you. So, would our motion be to authorize John to apply for this? To apply for the program? Like how?
Yeah.
Does that make
So,
sense?
so the RSA happening in the first place is kind of the entry fee, I guess, if you will. So you're already like in the program. Now it's, we know what we can do, what should we do is kind of the question. So if the city is looking at concept one and that's what we want to push for, the next available project and/or a project funded by my money could push towards that.
So the motion might be to accept the report as informational, recommending option one as a.
Yeah.
Good?
Sure.
Committee? Yeah.
So one of the options was the roundabout. And I noticed that on the crash data, some of them involved vulnerable road users, which would be cyclists or pedestrians.
Yep.
And I just want to, can we touch upon how a roundabout could impact, say, since we are moving towards a multimodal transportation system network in this area, how could a roundabout impact, say, a cyclist?
So a lot of it depends on the comfort level of the cyclist. For a facility like we would show here, the cyclist would be assumed to take the lane going through the roundabout. I have to imagine if you're on this road cycling, you're probably fairly confident with your riding skills.
So just to be clear, I'm comparing it to either like what the current status is or what some of the other options are. Is a roundabout easier or harder for a cyclist typically? Safer?
I think it would be less comfortable, but it would be safer.
But the reality is, they don't have the money, we don't have the money. So,
I think, I hear that, and also I think when someone says, I'm very sensitive to where there are roundabouts, that it's often more difficult as a pedestrian and
Yep.
as a cyclist. And I can understand some people favoring that, and it might be great for this place, but I just want to make sure that that I'm clear about that it's not, it can be more difficult for some people. So-
I agree. I agree with it. Yes, Mr. Mack.
Just want to make a quick comment. JB Mack with Southwest Region Planning Commission, also live at 21 Pine Ave. I was part of this study. I didn't want the committee to discount the earlier discussion about the lighting, and I think it's worthwhile to at least explore that. It's a pretty dark stretch of road. Councilor Greenwald made a point about traffic may be increasing through there. We heard that the high school uses the road a lot to get to and from let's say Chesterfield. I was very surprised by this, but if you do Google Maps, people in Chesterfield, the easiest way to get to Cheshire Medical Center is actually taking this road, which sounds bizarre to me, but that's where Google will send you. So, there's a lot of people that don't want to go all the way to the 9, 10, 11 and then get on the West Street interchange there that live in West Keene. I know a lot of folks I live in West Keene, like to use this road and Chesterfield Road to get to their destination. So all of this to say is I think the lighting is, again, this is a dark stretch of road and it's worthwhile looking into that. Don made the case earlier that he probably doesn't need $84,000 to clear, and so there might be a budget actually to look at that, so it's worthwhile to look at. Thanks.
Good. Thank you. Anything further from the public committee? How about a motion?
Move to recommend that the New Hampshire Department of Transportation's report on a roadway safety audit for the intersection of Route 9 and Wickham's Mill Road be accepted as informational while recommending concept 1.
Second.
With the hope for lighting?
With the hope for lighting, yes, thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion's made, seconded by Councilor Tobin. Anything further? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate the time.
Okay, item 6. Gilboa Avenue Solar Pavilion concept. You back?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucia, Public Works Director. As the guests take their chairs, I will introduce the next act. Actually, really excited tonight to introduce one of our newest colleagues at the city. Bill Seamer joined us about a month ago. He is our new Assistant City Engineer. And we're trying not to be too rough on him tonight. He's doing a fantastic job. He's jumped right in. He's taken over some of our more challenging projects. So please be gentle and don't scare him off. So Bill's the project manager on the Gilboa Ave Solar Pavilion. With Bill tonight, we've got Russ Bates, thank you. Russ is with the design firm that's doing the Gilboa Ave Solar Pavilion project. Just a quick reminder, and I think everybody on the panel knows the history, but for anyone watching at home, this idea really stemmed out of the downtown project, and specifically it stemmed out of the conversation I had with the Conservation Committee that really expressed that they wanted more trees downtown, and the Energy and Climate Committee that said we wanted solar-powered lighting, carbon-free energy downtown. And the marriage of those two concepts was this idea of putting a solar array off of the main street, but sized to offset the electrical demands for the downtown. And we were able to get a grant to do that. The City Council authorized us to apply for a grant. We won that grant. It's the Northern Borders Regional Commission's Timber for Transit grant. So that brought with its own requirements, specifically that the structure had to be something that enhanced and developed the advanced wood products industry within New Hampshire. So with all of that as background, I'll turn it over to Russ, and he will take it from here.
Thank you.
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
There you go. How's that? All right. Okay. Appreciate everybody taking the time. We're pretty excited about this project. We put together a project team, or I'll say the city of Keene has, and part of that team is obviously the city, who's a project owner, responsible for the oversight, taking care of all the funds, that type of thing. They have contracted NextGen, the company I work with, as the prime consultant, so we're helping with coordination, providing that additional bandwidth and expertise and leadership. We're doing community engagement events, which we had 2 of those today that we'll talk about. We're also developing the concepts and doing the refinement work on that, and bringing the engineering aspect to this project. We'll also help with some bid preparation as far as the bid package that'll go out for the actual construction. I mentioned engineering, so you can see we've got some support consultants. ARM Group, if you're familiar with them, they do quite a bit. They're a full service, but they also have several gigawatts of clean energy as part of their portfolio, and that's important with this project. But they will be taking care of all the civil, structural, the electrical, everything involved with the drawings. They're going to stamp those drawings, put together all the specifications that go along with that. Don mentioned the grant aspect. So the city is doing a fantastic job with the grant, but we also have a partner, Kellogg and Sovereign, which, if anybody here is familiar with grants, anybody like grants as far as administration, Yeah, I don't. I'm terrible. So we brought in Kellogg and Sovereign to help with anything that the city may need as far as going through those documents, just getting the most bang for the buck for that grant. So the existing site, I think everybody's probably familiar. If you pull up on your Google Maps and type in Farmers Market of Keene, you can see the location. That's a proposed pavilion site. So we're going to show you about 3 different concepts, and they're all going to have pretty much the same footprint here, which is about 230 foot in length, about 30 foot in width. Okay? Oh, sorry. So here's concept 1, and there's going to be a lot of the characteristics of all of these that are going to be the same. So whenever you look at this conceptual rendering, you can see obviously there's solar, right? So they're all going to have a 75 kW solar array system for this, all right? If you guys are familiar with solar canopies or solar pavilions, you're probably, if you've been under them when it's raining, most of the time they're not watertight, so you're going to have that drip. These canopies are typically designed to provide some shading and mostly to generate your electricity. With what's come about the last several years, they've tried to do some fixes with gasketing, with caulking, all kind of things. That's really short-term fixes. We've got a partner we're working with that has designed a fantastic system that basically it's going to catch all that water in a guttering system, if you will, and nothing's going to drip underneath that canopy, right? So that's important whenever you're under there with an event like a farmer's market. You don't want to be dripped on. It's also important whenever that stuff freezes up. You don't want icicles. You don't want a safety hazard, something dropping. So this is all going to be captured. All that water is going to be sent to probably one of the drain systems in the local area. Another thing to think about is you're going to be able to accommodate food trucks. Let me go to the next elevation, give you another look at this. All the food trucks, tents, you're going to be able to do quite a bit under here. It's going to be a lot of space that you can kind of customize to whatever event you may want. I'll direct you to the lighting. There is going to be lighting under this. So you think about LED lighting. If you've got an event, say in October and it's starting to get dark, maybe you would have to cut that event off early because of the end of the daylight. With this, you're not going to have to. You're going to have lighting under there. You're also going to have power. So what do I mean by that? Well, you're going to have some electrical service. So whenever you have these food trucks that pull in, instead of them having to run a generator or actually run the truck themselves and they're loud, you've actually got that exhaust that you're having to breathe in. Nobody likes that. You're going to be able to just plug those things up and use that electricity there, right? So that's important. Again, you can see the aspect as far as the timber common across all of these. That's part of the grant requirement, and that's part of all 3 concepts. Here's another look at this Concept 1 monoslope roof. Gives you a little bit better idea of what this will look like when nobody's underneath it. You can see the timber. You can see it's the 230 foot by 30 foot dimensions. The clearance as far as the low end, we're looking around 15 foot. And again, this is all preliminary on the low end. Maybe you're up to 19 foot on that high end. What's the price tag on this? Well, for procurement and construction, you're looking around $1.62 million. And again, grant funding is a big part of that. Okay? So we'll go to concept 2. This is what we're calling the checkmark roof. This looks a lot like the monoslope. The only difference is it's a little bit bigger. If you look at this from the side, it looks like a check mark, hence the name checkmark roof. So what's the benefit of this? Because it's pretty much the same as the monoslope. It's just going to be a little bit bigger, provide some additional protection from rain and from the sun on that walkway between the green area and the parking area. So it's just going to provide a little bit of extra coverage there. Grade level view, again, very similar to the monoslope. Just going to have that additional length at the opposite end of Gilboa Avenue. Other than that, the lighting is going to be the same. The solar array sizing is going to be the same. The electrical service is going to be the same. And if you can look at this one, it's again, looking southeast in that direction. You can see there's some differences there whenever you don't have the food trucks and stuff in the picture. It's going to be a bigger foundation, right? You're going to have a little bit more wood there. So it's going to have some more material. The dimensions there, you're looking around 230 foot by 30 foot wide. Clearance, you're still going to have that 15 foot, going to be closer to around 17 foot on the high end. And the cost is going to be a little bit more. You've got some more foundation work there. You've got some more materials. That's around $1.69 million for procurement and construction. So that brings us to concept 3, which this looks a lot different than what we just looked at. This is the gable roof design. A lot of the same characteristics, 75 kW watt solar array, and that's on the side opposite of Gilboa Avenue. You can't see it really good in this picture, but it's there. The other side of that roof is going to be, we're not sure what the material would be, but it would be more of a traditional roof. The solar is going to be on the south side for generation purposes, right? So we'd have more of a traditional roof. Maybe it's going to be very similar to the solar as far as how it looks, just to match it. Go down to the next grade level slide. You can see what jumps out, I think to me, is you're going to have some additional supports, right? This is a very traditional design. So it's going to be very fitting for the area. The issue being with this one compared to the others is it's going to be a little bit tighter. You're still going to have the lighting underneath. You're still going to have the electric service. You're still going to have the water rain-tight system in there. So again, very, very similar. And here's this other view to give you a better idea. The issue with this, going to be those structures at what I call the front of the parking lot, the closest to Gilboa Avenue, right? That's going to make it a little bit more difficult for maneuverability and for pulling trucks in, for snow removal, things like that. So those are some of the things that we've looked at. But this is another design to consider. This is 230 foot by 30 foot, so that same footprint. You're still going to have that 15-foot of clearance, and the budgetary cost on this is going to be more. There's more involved with this one, so it's going to cost a little bit more. That's at $1.74 million. So that's a look at all 3 of these from different angles, and we put together another slide here to compare these. So you can see them kind of side by side. If you look at that first column of the table, those are the features, followed by concept 1. It's the second column. Concept 2 is the check mark, and then followed by concept 3. Let's look at the first few categories and see what's very similar, what's the same. So the solar energy generation, all 3 concepts are about the same, 75 kW. So that's going to be common for all of them. Weather protection, they're all pretty good. One may be a little better than the other or what have you, but they're all pretty much in that same category of good is what we're saying. Covered gathering space, it's all large. It's pretty much the same footprint, right? The mass timber integration, checks across the board there. They're all going to have that and meet that grant requirement. The event infrastructure, so we're talking about the lighting underneath and the power that would be installed. They're all going to have that. So those are all the same for each one of these. Where it changes is when you get into these next categories. So overall appearance, we're saying concept 1, that monoslope roof, we're calling that a modern type of appearance. The checkmark roof, that's more of a signature. That's what we're calling it. And then the gable roof, that's traditional. That's kind of how we categorize that. Is one better than another as far as how they look? Yeah, that's pretty subjective. That's up to everybody to decide for themselves. Something a little less subjective is vehicle access and maneuverability. So concepts 1 and 2, we're saying they're excellent. You've got a lot of room to move and maneuver and do things under there, right? That's really excellent compared to the gable roof, which has those additional supports we were talking about. It's still good, but we're not saying it's excellent. There's going to be some more constraint there. What about the construction complexity of these? Now, I'll start by saying that each one of these, they're all easy to build. I use the example of comparing building this to a nuclear power plant. This is easy. What we're looking at is comparing these between each of the designs themselves. So the monoslope roof, that is the simplest of all of these, right? Pretty easy to do. The checkmark roof, that's a little bit tougher. That's got a little bit more on the foundation, a little bit more material there. And then the gable roof, we're saying that's going to be the more complex out of all of these, all right? And that kind of lines up with the construction cost. We went ahead and listed this in here again. The monoslope roof is the least expensive at $1.62 million. The checkmark roof is $1.69 million, and again, the gable roof is a little bit more at $1.74 million. Okay. We did have some community feedback. I had 2 sessions today. We had one at 2 o'clock that was with stakeholders, folks that are part of the farmers market, just different, I'll say some business owners I think attended as well. And then we had another session with just the general public at 4 o'clock. We went through this same presentation, had a lot of great feedback, a lot of discussion. I love doing those sessions because you learn a lot. There's some great ideas, and I would say probably this has been the best one as far as great input from the community. So that was fantastic. You could see the sheet there. That's what we passed out to everybody to give their kind of vote on what they prefer and provide any additional comments. So we've got some tallies there that we can talk about. I can say that it was overwhelming. Folks liked that monoslope, that concept one. That was overwhelming the favorite. There were some people like the check mark for various reasons. There was even a few that liked the gable roof because of that traditional look and how it matched up with some of those other buildings, which is key. But whenever you're talking about actually who likes what, the majority definitely liked the monoslope roof. This next step slide, so where we're at this point, we've got the community feedback. I've kind of shared just an overview, and we're really going to dig into the data, but the big numbers from the community feedback is they like concept one, no question. So we reviewed that input, and we'll continue and look at some of the comments and really go through it and really scour that data. But the next step is to select that preferred concept, and that's a big reason we wanted to share this with you guys tonight and get your feedback. From there, once a concept is selected, then we get into the engineering aspect of this. We'll go back and forth with the city, and we're going to have a lot of discussion on the engineering and get that figured out, which is always a fun thing. That will turn into these construction documents. So we'll have the fully engineered drawings, everything stamped, 100% ready to go for building, as well as the associated specifications and things like that to go with it. From there, when the city's ready, they'll put it out for competitive bid and evaluate that. Once they make a selection there, that's when the project is built. And that brings us to the end. So threw a lot out there, but ready for any questions or comments?
I'll throw you a quick, easy one. So this is a federally funded event?
It's a grant, and it's basically 80% covered is
So it's
what
80% of 1.6 or 1.7 or 1.8?
It is. The total budget was just about 2.2. And so that includes the grant amount and then our cost share, the city's cost share.
I'm just trying to.
So it's about 1.9 is the grant amount. And that covers design and construction.
So if we choose a more expensive option, it will cost us
more.
A bit more?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll identify, I am in a butter to this, and I apologize for not coming, but it's probably just as well, because I would have been, probably a minority voice here. I'm trying to get excited over this project.
Mm-hmm.
It's great that we're getting all this money, and that the panels are going to power downtown. This whole thing, I want to feel something more exciting than a bunch of food trucks or the farmer's market in there. I haven't heard that. I'm still open and listening, but I would say absolutely. I think that
Monoslope?
is the most ugly presentation. I'm sorry. It is awful to me, and I'm sorry if I'm insulting your design, but at least if we have to have this, it should be something somewhat reminiscent of the train station, which would be the gable roof.
Yeah, yes.
That at least I could feel a little bit better about. If I had my druthers, I'd see a 4-story building there with apartments upstairs, affordable apartments, and retail space and restaurants downstairs. This is just a project created because we have money. I'm sorry, I try to be very positive about almost everything going on downtown, but you got to inspire me somewhat.
So
But if it has to happen, the gable would be my only hope.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chair. So one of the things that, one of the items, one of the issues that came up during the engagement sessions this afternoon was, I'll say maneuverability, parking vehicles, and the ability to set up, and I know your primary focus isn't on the farmer's market, but the different event spaces when they set up their tents and their spaces there. And while I think a lot of folks kind of share your thoughts on the look of the gabled roof, it's kind of reminiscent of the old train platform, train station, but that design, with the way the foundation, the footings, and the timber structure itself was laid out, was kind of inviting issues with people parking, hitting the structure, and same thing with snow plows, and some of those routine tasks. So.
Okay, one final question, and then I'll stop my negative rant. How many people came to these 2 listening sections and gave input?
So there was a total of about 42. It was split almost.
Between the 2?
Split almost evenly. We had 2 sessions, one at 2, one at 4, about 20 in each session. We received feedback. I think 31 folks filled out the form and provided their input, their
feedback. It doesn't really strike me as a large crowd driving an almost $2 million project. Yes, Jacob.
Yeah,
Counselor, sorry.
You're all set. We're late. I have a question, and then I have a comment that is maybe along the lines of what the chair just raised. My question is around the drainage pipe or the gutter. I don't see that reflected in either of these designs. And I did have an immediate question, right, thinking about rain, thinking about the winter and snow and ice melt. What is the plan for where that kind of drainage is going to go? I don't want it on the sidewalk or,
Yeah, there's going to be a guttering system. So you're going to have an internal guttering system where the solar panels, what they mount on, will have an internal guttering system. And where it runs to, that gets into the detailed design of where exactly do we want to put this. So it's not just going to run off, and be on top of people. It's going to probably go into the stormwater.
Okay, that works. I know we'd addressed the kind of dripping through, but I'm also thinking about off. My comment is a little bit of the same as the chair was raising in relation to the feedback. It struck me that we had the feedback sessions today. First of all, at times where I was unable to make them, right, like many of my constituents and many of my colleagues on council, I work for a living, and so between the hours of 9 and 5, I don't have the ability to be at all these public sessions. And so I would imagine that there was a large group of folks who might have had some interest in having input in this who were able to make it, and then some folks, like me, who would have liked to make this but maybe weren't as able. The second piece is that the agenda for this for this meeting came out yesterday. Part of the agenda packet is the recommendation. So the recommendation for concept 1 was presented to us in this agenda packet in advance of today's feedback sessions. And so I'm glad that the result of the feedback sessions was that people liked the monoslope, or the people that were there liked the monoslope. But I'm just not sure how much I can believe that the recommendation is really informed by a public feedback session that happened after we got the recommendation in our packet. So that's my comment on that. I will say that I don't have an appetite for spending additional money on this project, even though I have do I think the nicest design is the gable? Sure. The fundamental purpose of this over the long term is to save us money by generating energy for the downtown. And I'm not sure that, adding costs to kind of, make it more aesthetically pleasing is the direction I'm inclined to go, although I appreciate the chair's comments.
Council.
Thank you. Echoing what Councilor Favalli said, I was at the afternoon session, and there were so many really interesting suggestions, and so I do feel a little uncomfortable that we're already supposed to go forward with a concept when there were so many suggestions, and some of them the Director of Public Works thought were feasible, actually, and might be workable. So I feel a little hesitant to move forward. Maybe Don can speak to this. But I do agree with Councilor Favallis's statement. This is about the solar panels, not specifically the aesthetics. I also loved the gable design, although I don't want to try to park in there. Yeah. Oh, but Mitch, I wanted to add that some of the people at the meeting had some really interesting ideas on how it could be used, and it seems like it could be really dynamic. So how it's used is kind of up to the community to make the best use of it.
Counselor.
I'm looking at this, and when I think I had it kind of looking backwards initially, but the way this is facing, usually the farmer's market has been, like, this would be half of the farmer's market, and then the other half, you would have to go around to the other side. Like, it wouldn't be facing each other, so you can't walk down the middle aisle.
You're saying like where the trucks are parked and kind of segregating a little bit? Is that your
Well,
point?
so there was one visual with all of the tents underneath it, but I'm looking at it, and that wouldn't be the whole farmer's market. The other, you'd have to go on the opposite side of the slope, which feels a little odd to me. Like that you're not having vendors on both sides. And I would say the same thing with most events, that it's the entrance for any event, it looks like is almost facing away from the sidewalk. So you'd have to leave there to go, which feels a little strange.
Yeah, and actually, in reality, the way you describe it is actually how it's going to be used, most likely. As the farmer's market is kind of set up now, where the trucks would probably back in, and the customers, the community would be on kind of the sidewalk side, not necessarily on the street side. But I think that's something that could change. But it's just the visual and how the rendering was shown.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to understand the vision, because it was sort of the opposite of what I expected it in some ways when I was first looking at it. So,
Yeah, however the setup is I mean, there's a lot of flexibility. You've got this big space, so wherever you want to set things up, wherever you want to direct
Yes.
folks to come in,
right.
that
I'm not,
would be.
yeah, just to be clear, I'm not talking about what's happening in the space. I'm talking about the actual direction. So to the chair's point, where he was talking about what he was going to be looking at from across the street, I was thinking he's going to be looking at a solid panel in the roof, but he's actually looking at the openings. So I just was a little bit confused about that. Yeah, I guess maybe I kind of am feeling along the same lines as it's kind of tough to just.
Following where you are, the way that farmer's market sets up, they back their vehicle.
Correct.
So the vehicle is sticking into the roadway, which is a current issue to be discussed. And then they have their table, which would be under whatever the overhang is. To solve that would be, they can't have their trucks. They need their tables or their tents or whatever they want to have, but not a display and then a vehicle. I'm following what you said, and
Yeah, I guess I imagine that when people were going there with their table, that also customers visiting would be somewhat under
yeah.
the roof, and right now, I don't see how that could happen.
And the other half of the way it is now, half of it's on Gilbo, and the other half
In the
is in
parking
the
lot.
parking lot. So this doesn't address that at all.
We did have several attendees from the farmers market representing that, and I could say they were very excited about it. There
I'm
was
sure.
a lot of enthusiasm, and they, from their aspect, there was no issue, but I hear what you're saying.
But also realizing they are not from Keene. 99% of them, unless I'm wrong. We will design it, and they will use it the way that we designed for them to use it. But again, I really would like to hear other uses beyond just the farmer's market and food trucks. If it's going to take up this, it's also a very large piece of valuable development property. And I'm only 1/15 of this organization, so, and it's going to happen regardless, however I'm whistling here. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to address a couple of the councilors' comments. The recommendation that's in your staff or in your packet was written to be clear that that's the staff recommendation. And yes, it was written before the public info sessions. And I was very glad to see that the public agreed with that. But that was staff recommendations going into it regardless, specifically for a lot of the reasons we've talked about. So honestly, I mentioned it today at the meetings. I agree that the gable structure is aesthetically much more appropriate for that location. It looked, as soon as I saw it, I said, well, that's our train platform, right? It looked great. From a long-term resiliency and maintenance perspective, I've got concerns about that structure just getting the snot beaten out of it by vehicles parking, by snowplows, as Bill mentioned. I just think it would be tough on the structure. So that's the primary reason that we shied away from that one. Between the options 1 and 2, it really came down to concerns about snow damming up on that check mark, leaves and whatnot collecting there and being more of a maintenance problem again. That said, there were a lot of really great ideas that were discussed at the meeting today. So Andy, Bill, Russ, and I kind of huddled after the last session ended up, and I said, well, geez, a lot of great ideas, a lot of things we need to think about. Does this, put us in a position where we need to go to MSFI and say, put this on more time and let us vet these ideas? And as we kind of talked through it, what we realized is that all of the ideas that I think really we want to explore more still fall within concept 1. So, for example, the idea of expanding the sidewalk so that the legs of the structure are part of the sidewalk space and not in the parking stalls, right? So making that an extra wide space, but protecting it, that still falls within concept 1. I think the things that we and I've got a list here of the ideas that were discussed, are all kind of design elements that we can incorporate as we move forward if the committee and the council ultimately agrees that concept 1, generally speaking, is the way to go. The other big question that came up during the session was picking up this entire structure and putting it inside the Commercial Street parking lot. And that's an idea that has some validity. I thought it was a very interesting idea. But, Assistant or Deputy City Manager Bohannon really kind of brought me back to reality that a big part of this project and the reason that we wanted to do it and the reason that we selected this location for the solar array was the goal of activating and creating a little bit more interest in Gilbo Ave. Right now, the distance from the curbing, where this begins, to the curbing in front of Lindy's Diner in the parking lot, there's 70 feet of asphalt width, right? It's just a sea of asphalt, and as former Councilor Remy likes to refer to it as, it's a soulless wasteland. One of the things we talked about this afternoon is pushing the structure and the parking stalls closer to Gilboa Ave, having a little bit more space, but having that, more of a road frontage, so to get to Councilor Greenwald's point of making that part of the streetscape rather than just parking spaces. So, bottom line, what I'm trying to get at is, yes, it's true, we had the recommendation in advance, but after consideration, I think all of those good ideas that were discussed today can fall within either option 1 or 2. I personally really hope you don't like option 3.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Workham.
Thank you, Your Honor. It clearly sounds like we're not ready to make a decision tonight, and that there's a lot of different options that could still be fleshed out a little bit more. I have a question about procedure. So, are we against any timelines right now for accepting the grant or anything like that, or getting the project, shovels in the ground? My other question is about public engagement and how much opportunity, and I do understand tonight would have been an opportunity for the public to weigh in as well. But I share similar concerns as Councilor Favelis that the times that were available today just were not feasible. So I'd like a little clarity on the options that were available for input.
So the first question about timing. So our goal is to get this ready for construction next season. So I think we still have ample time to do that. Really, the issue, I guess, would be just in terms of keeping the consultant working towards the project. Really, we're at a point now where their next step is going to be doing more engineering focus. The renderings are pretty, and we have had an engineer look at them to say, yes, this is a structure that can exist in the physical universe. But we haven't really started the design of those structures. That's the next step, and we don't want to do that until the council has given us some clear direction on which of the design alternatives you want us to move forward.
Yep.
I have follow-up. So it sounds like the engineers could continue to, or the consultants could continue to work on concepts and design and everything you just said, and city staff could hold some more public input meetings potentially?
Sure.
Yep. All right, thank you.
Okay. Councilor.
So I think I've been processing as we're talking here. And I think that in some ways, thinking of these as concepts, I can get on board with this concept, with option 1. I think that, I hear all the hesitations, but if I can sit here and look at this and start to visualize it with other things around it, with plants around it, with people walking around it, with activity, cars parking there, right now it is just, that space is very awkward right now. And I think that keeping in mind that this is a concept, it's always hard to look at concepts as the whole thing, because you're not interacting with it. This is not the angle we're going to be looking at when we walk through. These are going to be beams at eye level, and we look up and this is what we see, and I can get on board with that. And I do understand, like, kind of wanting to come up with more concepts, but I think a lot of the things that we are concerned about is the implementation and things that actually happen in the more specific engineering and design process. You know, maybe some of it is the location and or extending the sidewalk a little bit like that. You know, it could be all things like that, that would make me see this completely differently in a lot of ways. So as much as we want to say, like, let's give us some more ideas, I feel like every time we've said that in this committee, it kind of can come back to haunt us in a lot of ways, where, you know, we kind of say we ended up in the same place, we kind of should have just taken a step. So honestly, I'm comfortable with design one.
If we had just forged forward with what was presented to us, we would have a total different Main Street plan. So don't tell me that we have to accept what is there. Our job is to look at it and think about it and go for options. Once this thing is built, that's all we're going to see for the next 20 years. Crazy option popped to mind. Part of what disturbs me is the vast length of it. Cut it in half and make it front and back. Put half of it in the parking lot and half here. I don't know what the other options that were talked about, other ideas that were talked about. This is just so not ready for a commitment, but again, I'm one of 5 here, so, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also feel comfortable with concept one. I did have a question earlier that I didn't ask during the information session, but I wrote it down. And kind of to Councilor Tobin's point, I think that as you're a pedestrian, we're facing from the opposite way, but I feel like in the rendering, it looks like the entrance is from the street side, whereas the entrance really would be from the sidewalk side. And I wondered if the legs of it could be moved to the opposite side so that the back is on the street side, and you know, people's tents and stuff would be set up towards the Gilbo Street side, and they'd be walking in, so they'd have some of that parking space area as well as the sidewalk, maybe. That was just a thought as I was sitting in a meeting before, like not really changing the design, just the kind of the supports of it.
Are you saying to move the supports closer to Gilbo Avenue?
Yeah, so that the back side of the pavilion would be Gilbo
Would be
Avenue, and because in a pavilion, like I'm thinking of, I guess the Lions Club Pavilion at the Rec Center, which you probably haven't seen, sorry, but it's kind of 3 sides, even though the 2 sides are kind of open, but I'm explaining it really badly, but I think the supports should be at the back, not at the front.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
the back, closer to Gilbo Avenue.
Exactly.
That certainly a possibility. I think the concern would be more so with the parking, as far as actually using it as a parking area, the snow removal, things like that, because it'd be closer as opposed to kind of out of the way. So something to consider. And I would say this too, once a concept is selected, then a lot of these things you guys are talking about, that all can go into that detailed design and back and forth, and let's figure this out. It's really determining which one of these 3 makes sense, and then fine tuning that. And we did get a lot of great input that we can incorporate into that design, but we're kind of stuck at this point until we know which concept to go with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am leaning at this time towards placing this on more time, not because I'm not confident in my decision around a concept, because I think I know what concept I would like to move forward with. I continue to have the concern about this is a multi-million-dollar project that is in the downtown. I think it's really important that additional opportunities be provided for community members to weigh in, and maybe there's additional ideas that come up, or maybe it's just getting more community input on what the which of these concepts people like or don't like. So my hope in putting this on more time would be that there would be the potential for some form of additional public outreach and comment, whether that looks like additional in-person sessions at different times, or it looks like leveraging online opportunities for people to give feedback. So I guess that I've heard the decision move, or the conversation move to a little bit of, we're ready to make a decision about the concept. If I had to vote, I could easily vote right now on concept one, the monoslope. But I want to be thoughtful and mindful of the process here, so I'm inclined for more time, and it doesn't sound like we're at risk of losing any grant funding or not being able to go out for bid. It's hard for me to see. I appreciate Councilor Tobin's comments. I maybe don't see the same downside to extending the timeline a little bit here.
Okay, going around in a circle. Motion?
I'll make that. Would move to place this item on more time.
Chair, who second?
Second.
Council Workman second. Anything further? Committee? Anything that hasn't already been said? Let me say. Okay, all in favor of more time? 4? And 1 opposed. Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Good presentation.
Yeah, and don't take it too personal. I guess that's part of the design process, and we'll get a winner by the time it's done.
like this after 8 o'clock.
Oh, well, no, well, what the hell. Okay, so now we're gonna annoy all the people that want to take pictures of birds and whatnot at night. This is restricting vehicular access to the wastewater treatment plant driveway. Good
Thank you,
evening
Mr. Chair,
again.
Don Lewis, your Public Works Director. I'm sure you all recall, we were here last August to chat about closure of the wastewater treatment plant access road during business hours. That decision, while I believe it was within my authority, was probably poorly executed. Let's go with that. We didn't do any public outreach or explanation of why, and it was not a very popular decision. So we backtracked off of that. More recently, what we've seen and now what really brings me here tonight is a couple weeks ago, our police department got a call from the Swansea police chief basically asking for some help. They are getting numerous calls after hours, in the evening, nighttime, about illicit activity happening on the driveway. People drag racing, doing donuts and burnouts and other activities. So they get calls from the neighbors in the Greenwood neighborhood that they hear that's happening. So they have to go and respond and what have you. So what we're here to talk about tonight and what we want to move forward with is a vehicular gate. It would be closed by my staff when they leave for the night. It would be located at the airport terminal. So just after the airport terminal, as you get to the driveway portion that goes down to the wastewater treatment plant, it would be a vehicular gate that we would close and lock at the end of the day. It would still allow bicyclists, pedestrians to use it for recreational purposes after hours, but it would preclude the vehicular activities and people going down there to do stuff. So I will respectfully say that this is something that I believe is within my authority. But I didn't want to repeat my mistake and just do it unilaterally. So I'm here to listen to what your thoughts are, to take that under advisement. But you don't have a recommended motion to authorize tonight, because I do believe that this is within our authority as the department head that's responsible for that facility. Security of that facility is my responsibility. So with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you. I'll kick it off with just a question about daytime use. So during the day, vehicles would still be able to, like, public vehicles would still be able to access the road for recreational use?
During work hours at the facility. So the facility is open, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And staff is on site during those hours. So when staff is on site, they will open the gate. It'll remain open. That's also when, septic haulers bring us waste. Campers can go and dump out their tanks. So when we're there on site, it'll be open for vehicular traffic, people that want to take pictures from their car and whatnot. But when there's no staff on site, they're going to lock it behind them.
Yeah, I just remember as part of the public comment that a lot of folks with accessibility issues drove into the area for recreational purposes. So I want to make sure that would still be an option, even if it was limited hours.
Yeah, and we are there for limited hours on Saturdays as well, so that's also available. But yeah, that would still be an option, and I know a former counselor that apparently uses his vehicle as like a blind so that he can take photos without disturbing the birds that he photographs. So pretty funny. Yeah.
Now, go ahead, finish it up.
Does the committee have any questions? Councilor Favelis?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will say, Ward 1 has just amazing residents and amazing former counselors as well. Great photographers. I do have, I guess, a question. Is the city of Keene, to your knowledge, the only entity to own property that is physically within another municipality's boundaries?
I can't imagine that would be the case, but I don't have any specific examples to cite. I know we own land in both Swansea and Roxbury, of course.
And so the reason that I'm asking that is that I guess, to what extent is it the city of Keene's responsibility to enforce laws, or to assist with the enforcing of laws, or to assist with the avoidance of breaking of the law that is occurring in other municipalities? I'm just, in reading the background and listening to your comments, the immediate impetus for this seems to be that the Swansea police chief has said, we'd like to close this down. I guess that, when you have, an individual who owns a home somewhere else, right, and there's activity going on there, we don't get a call from that municipality to say, do something about this.
Yeah, that's true. We are essentially just a property owner in Swansea. I would say that's the impetus that's brought me here tonight. But I should also add that Aaron Costa, Assistant Public Works Director, has been kind of, I won't say nagging, but drawing my attention to the need to do something about this basically since early spring. And in your packet, there's some photographs of what our brand new pavement looks like. That it isn't just aesthetic, it actually does damage the pavement when people are driving erratically like that. So there's also a city interest in protecting that asset.
Thank you. And I want to just add on the end there that I appreciate the partnership that we have with the town of Swansea related to things that are happening at the airport and are going on out there. I'm happy to serve on the Airport Marketing Advisory Commission with members from Swansea. It's a good partnership, and I know it's much improved over past years, so I want to make sure that I get that in there after my snarkier comment before. The Saturday hours for me is what has kind of changed my mind on this. So I was thinking actually did the same along the same lines of the conversation we had on the previous item, that, well, that kind of daytime access is, or workday access in the work week is great for folks with accessibility issues who maybe use that road, that have the ability to do that during the work week, but knowing that there's a little bit of availability on Saturdays as well is better. I also want to commend the Public Works Director for learning from the last time and coming here and giving a little bit more lead time on this.
I still have bruises from the last time, so yeah, the lesson is still fresh.
Any other questions from the committee? All right.
Ryan Cooley, Airport Director. I just want to bring to everybody's attention that When I work 5:30, 6 o'clock, I was quite shocked a few months ago, and subsequently it's continued to happen, where there are individuals screaming in their vehicles from wastewater treatment plant area. I can't see through the trees, but I can hear them. And then by the time I walk out to my car, they're running past the airport parking lot out to the road extremely quick. And I'm sure some of you have probably heard the age-old, management placard that says integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. If they're doing this when there's still a public presence at the airport on the weekdays, I can only imagine what they're doing on the weekends when nobody's there. As the steward of just the airport in itself, I would hate to have an accident or an incident out front of the airport terminal, people walking across the road to the areas that are publicly available there. It's just, I've heard stories from my operations manager, my operations staff. I've heard from, Don, through these various steps, and I can now say with my own experience that there is a problem out there, and it would be great if we could do something about it.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone from the public here, but if anyone would like to make any other comments, please let me know. If not, are we ready for a motion?
Move to recommend that the Public Works Director's report on restricting vehicular access to the wastewater treatment plant driveway be accepted as informational.
Second?
We have a second, a motion by Councilor Tobin and a second by Councilor Ellis. What was that? All those in favor, yeah. Jeez.
Okay.
It's
Hey.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is airport terminal renovations.
Don, do you want to introduce us? You've done everything else. I mean, you did.
I've already stole this once.
Yeah, I thought that might be appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Deputy City Manager, and Oversee Facilities, Andy Bohannon. And with us tonight, as you just got introduced to, is Ryan Cooley, our Airport Director. So we wanted to bring forward to you just our feasibility study that we have conducted with Michael Petrovic Architects, which is a local firm, and has been working with us since February, just kind of inquiring and then coming up with a couple of different concepts. And then we went before the Airport Development Committee and Marketing Committee last month, and we just visited them again this past week. And I just wanted to kind of get you to where we are. So in a feasibility study, you hear concept plans, you hear schematic designs, feasibility, they're all steps in a process. Feasibility study is really that first step. It's kind of like that reality check of like, hey, how can we do this project? Is this project even feasible? Can we even fit what we dream of in this particular location? We want to make sure that we're checking ADA accessibility. If you have ever been down to the airport, the building itself is tired. I have very fond memories of going there as a child, dropping my dad off to go for Kingsbury many a times, and to the Red Roof Restaurant. So been to the building many times, and nothing's really changed and since that period of time. I think we've put carpet on the walls, which is kind of odd. But then just to look at the circulation and egress, and just make sure all the flow happens correctly in that building. And so we wanted to get a little technical and look at everything, and Michael Petrovic has come in and completed that. And one of the most important things is, is it possible, is it practical? But before we really get into detailed designs, which is in that next step. So we wanted to give you a couple different concepts. So that next slide, is kind of going to give you, this is kind of our current design, but we wanted to, with a few iterations, so we wanted to show you the opportunity of what it possibly could look like if we expanded space within inside the terminal. And there's plenty of room. If you've walked in, there's quite a bit of space there. It's empty, but you could also limit yourself. So part of the things that we talked about was, okay, this could happen, but what if we get services coming in, other tenants that need space, this might have to happen, but do we have space to even do it? And that was the purpose behind this. And one of the things that this particular slide shows is more of a robust lobby area that could house a couple different things. And Ryan's going to speak in the end just kind of about some of the potential that's happening at the airport terminal building. So want to go to the next slide, Ryan? So this is kind of a quick rendering of what it potentially looks like. One of the things that we are attracted to, and this is really what started the whole conversation back in February, is the availability of Timber for Transit grant, which is, you just saw 2 items ago with on Gilboa Avenue, what that would look like. We would be going after those same funds. And there's a few complications there, but we're working our way through that to see if we can make it happen. But this is kind of like a front entrance, spruce it up a little bit, no pun intended with the wood. But it really, if you've gone to several different airports, you're starting to see a little bit of facelift. The Burlington International Airport in Vermont recently received these grants and these funds, and you see a timber frame, glass, very opening, very welcoming type environment. And one of the things that Ryan's going to speak to as well is just this is a center point of a lot of activity and a lot of potential new activity. And this is also the first impression that a lot of people receive when they come into Keene, especially if they're coming in from the air side. So Ryan, that next slide. And this would be the back of the terminal, the air side. So when you're coming in, you have a covered pavilion to get yourself dry or out of the elements into the building itself. You see another canopy a little bit further down. That canopy is for the restaurant area, so they have a covered space on the outside. So it could really be something of comfort to go out there and more than just maybe the summer months. They could have it more 3-season, if you will. So it just really kind of adds a little extra touch. Ryan, that last slide. So this would be kind of the inside of the terminal where we would look to actually raise the roof a little bit in the lobby, create some more windows, which would provide some more natural light, make it a little bit more inviting. You can see we've kind of put in like a passenger waiting area. If that were something that were to happen, the restaurant is still off to the right, or to the left rather, and the airspace is still right through. So these are kind of like the high level designs that we said, oh, these are all possible. This is what they could possibly look like. We had a couple different variations, and we kind of settled on these. And so with the next step is, Ryan's been doing a phenomenal job with putting a lot of pieces of the puzzle together, and there's a lot of shells to move and manipulate here. But we had a few concrete things, and then we have some goals and aspirations that we want to reach to. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Ryan so he can kind of explain that piece for you, but I wanted to set the stage a little bit for the building itself. Ryan?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Ryan Cooley, Airport Director. Before I get into my overview of what we've been doing in the past 7 months, I wanted to talk about moving forward with this process. I identified, along with Deputy City Manager Bohannon, funds put aside for our parking lot rehabilitation of about $379,300. And then in fiscal year '28, $402,250. That right there is just shy of $900,000 in terms of capital improvement funds that we have put aside to strictly focus on the pavement and the roof. Recently, we just got done awarding the bids for the wildlife fence project that has been in the works for quite some time to fully encapsulate the airport and its operating areas out at the airport for security and safety. And it came in under budget. So that left us with our, what used to be known as bipartisan infrastructure law funding, now called IIJA funding from the FAA of a little over $833,000. And those funds are specific to infrastructure improvements, and most airport directors in my position would like to utilize those funds at targeted interests that would normally potentially qualify for federal FAA funding, but usually aren't approved because they're just so far removed from pavement, things closer to the runway, that the FAA goes, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. We have other runways that we need to fund. So because we have this this funding available, it made me think, well, goodness, if we can get this application in time, the local match is only 2.5% of that $833,000. So total FAA IIJA funding of $877,192 could be achieved with that state match and the city match of 2.5%. That right there could help fund quite a bit of the parking lot and the roofing upgrades. So then I thought, well, if we're going to have the funds available to do terminal upgrades with FAA funds, that frees up some of the capital money that we have put aside for projects that are now hopefully going to be taken care of by federal dollars, which then led me to think back to our feasibility project that we have going on and the potential for Timbers for Transit. And so that really opened up the possibility of using some, most, or all of the capital improvement monies that we have put aside and use it as a match for Timbers for Transit. So a medium approach could use the currently programmed $379,300 parking lot amount as the Timber for Transit match. The Timber for Transit request would be a little over $1.5 million. The local Timber for Transit match would be covered by that $379,300, bringing the total Timber for Transit project total to $1,896,500, combined with the IIJA portion of a total of $2.77 million rehabilitation and upgrade of the airport terminal. A larger approach, if we wanted to tackle this and really take advantage of the funding opportunity that we have with money already put aside, would be to request a Timber for Transit amount of a little over $3 million, with a local Timber for Transit match of $759,620, with a total project for Timber for Transit of $3.79 million, almost $3.8 million, combined with the IIJA funding would bring us up to $4.67 million project, which could really enhance the terminal. So that's it from the funding piece. I'm not sure if Deputy City Manager Bohannon would like me to go into the history of what I've been working on over the past 7 months that kind of correlate to this, or if he has anything else to add first.
If it wasn't 9:30, I probably would say yes. But one of the things that you can imagine, I think, you sit on the committee is the economic development impact of this. The companies come in from out of town that Ryan has been working very closely with to attract folks here to Keene. And they come in and they see a building that's, was built in the 1960s and designed then, and just, not a lot of upkeep and maintenance or improvements. Then they see a building that has, $4 million improvements, and the city has already allocated the funding, that we're not creating any new money requests here. And they say, oh, well, the city's gonna be putting $4 million into this. I wanna be a part of this. And then they come. And so it kind of starts to create a snowball effect of development. And I think, our airport director, Ryan, he's done a phenomenal job of trying to reach out to all of these companies. And it definitely shows the avenue that we could take with already allocated funding to approach this opportunity and get things done. It's very similar to what, when we did the rec center with the CDFA funding, it just kind of came upon us. We're at a point where we need to apply for the Timber for Transit grant and have a letter of interest to show that we're prepared and ready to move forward. That process would be in August, so that's kind of the reason why we're here tonight, because we're a facilities project, wanted to make sure it was, in front of you. And then we get kind of noticed if we get accepted through in October, we would be moving forward, and then December. So we would be back in front of you a couple more times, but just making sure that we're on track for every step within the grant process.
Is there any reason that we should not just say yes?
I can't think of one. Ryan, can you?
I wouldn't want to be wasting your time if I thought that there would be potential reasons to say no, so.
Okay, well, time is the word, yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question. So just so I understand the funding pieces here. So if we go for the larger approach to use that, for the local match, if I'm doing the math correctly and I understand how each of the pots of money this is coming from, the projects are going towards, that is still less than what is currently in the CIP over the next couple of years for the parking lot and roof projects combined, what the local match would be.
So the local match would be no more than what we already have put in
okay.
place for fiscal year 27 and 28, correct?
Questions? Yep.
Thank you. The renderings that you have, I know they're just kind of pictures and, you don't have anything really definitive, but do you think you can accomplish that with the ideas you have here?
Yeah, so at the last airport development meeting, we had our final feasibility report from Michael Petrovic, and really kind of put the kind of a scale of a project, because everything's not truly defined yet, and we haven't really gone into a lot of the details. There was a broad range of 3.5 to 5.5. So what we're coming in is kind of like right in that sweet spot, right in the middle, as we did with the recreation center. If we had a pot of money, this is what we would be able to accomplish, and we would work from there. So worked out pretty good for that.
Any other questions? No public questions. Motion?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to execute and an authorization, to submit a pre-application for the fall funding cycle of the Northern Borders Regional Commission's Timber for Transit grant program for the Dillons Hopkins Airport Terminal Building.
Second.
Seconded by Council Workman. We'll ask you for a big, long report next meeting. So, don't feel like, and thank you for making it through all this. Anything further? All in favor? Good presentation. Go get them. Okay. And we have a downtown infrastructure project update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucier, Public Works Director. It is officially past my bedtime, so I will be brief. You may have noticed that construction has officially begun on our downtown project. Very exciting. Along those lines, I can report that the informational binders that we presented a couple of meetings ago, those have all been distributed out to all the business owners. At least everybody that we're aware of that wants one has got one at this point. Before we have a chance to meet again, I suspect we're going to have at least the first update out, with additional schedules, timeframes, and whatnot for folks. Contracts are all signed. We also, this week, inked the lease agreement, or temporary access agreement technically, with Main Street America for the gravel lot. So Casella is actively setting that parcel up. They actually began already, so that's happening. And of course, Liberty began replacing their pipes last week, so that is well underway at this point. Some coming attractions while you are all enjoying the summer vacation. Casella will begin their prep work in the street next week. So they've got to set up traffic control signs, the construction ahead signs, those sorts of things. They got to do their call before you dig markouts. There's some work that they've got to do before they put a shovel in the ground. This kind of plays into something that their project manager described when he was here a month ago. Not wanting to do a shock and awe approach, but rather having a sort of a, let people warm up to the idea that downtown's getting torn up. Next week, they will, not next week, the week after, they will begin exploratory excavation is the technical term, but basically digging very small holes at specific locations where there's critical elevation information that's needed. So, the design is based on, if we know the elevation of a pipe in this manhole and the elevation of that same pipe in this manhole, we connect the dots and we assume that it's a straight pitch between them. But when there's two utilities that cross very close together and it's a critical to get that elevation right, we'll do an exploratory excavation. They'll expose those pipes where they are and make sure that we know exactly where they're going to be. And that is important for a couple of reasons. It avoids conflicts when you're under construction. It also makes sure that the structures that are getting built, at a prefab concrete prefab caster, they're going to have the holes in the right location and right elevation. So that's an important piece that'll be happening the week of the 3rd. But the shock and awe is coming. That'll happen the week of the 10th, and that's when we're tentatively scheduled to remove the trees that are scheduled for removal under this phase. Last month's I guess it was earlier this month, a couple weeks ago at the Coffee and Hard Hats, the attendees asked, well, could you mark the trees that are going to be coming out so we can see? So that's been done. That was done last week. The pink ribbons around trees in the square area denote the 14 trees that are going to be removed as part of the project. There's blue ribbons on 3 trees over on the west side. Those trees are scheduled actually to be transplanted. They were planted by the city about 3 or 4 years ago, and they're still small enough that they can feasibly be relocated. So Mitchell is going to be locating or selecting some locations to plant them within the right-of-way on other city streets, so they won't go to waste. And then finally, between now and when we next meet again, August 12th will be our next Coffee and Hard Hats meeting, 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Stay tuned for location. They're tentatively scheduled for the Transportation Center, but if the stars align, the weather is good, and they're not cutting down trees that day, we're going to try to actually move the show on the road and set up a little pop-up tent in Central Square so we can kind of point to stuff and have it be a little more interesting for attendees. And then finally, September 19th will also be before your next meeting. So with that, happy to take your questions.
Is there a formal groundbreaking scheduled?
So we discussed it, the city manager and I talked about it, and we decided against a groundbreaking ceremony. Instead, we're going to wait and have a nice ribbon cutting ceremony when we're through it. So we're not planning a formal groundbreaking.
Okay. Yep.
Just a quick question. Did you say September 19th for the second
September
one?
9th.
9th. Oh,
9th.
okay.
Yep.
I was going to say, that's a Saturday.
No, it's the second Tuesday of the month.
George, anything to? Okay.
I gave mine to Dawn to give you because it's late.
It's past his bedtime, too.
Okay, anything further? Okay. Who's up for the motion?
Move to recommend, sorry, wrong page, that the downtown infrastructure project update be accepted as informational.
Second.
Seconded by Council Tobin. Anything further? All in favor? Boom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I thank you all for coming. I thank the public that has been watching on TV and has probably nodded off by now. And that the legal staff was here guiding us all the way. And we are adjourned. Thank you.